This is the best speedrunner in the world, and the day he woke up inside a fantasy game, he did not panic once. He just started optimizing. Fastest route, cheapest exploit, lowest time. He loses fights on purpose, because losing saves him 90 seconds. He kills bosses by throwing pocket change at them, but I'll warn you now, nobody here finds it funny. To him, none of these people are people. They are constructs standing in his route. A whole village goes off the map while he shaves seconds, and the one knight who followed him every single run gets taken by the game, leveled to 75 and set in front of him as the final boss. So does he run the optimal route one last time, knowing winning means she dies for good? Or does he finally refuse the fastest way? Let's find out. And subscribe if you want the rest of the run. Arachne thinks she's got him trapped in her web. She asks if he's the otherworld hero, because she wants him as a puppet. But guys, our guy just wants to wall clip. See, a few hours ago in Tokyo, the legendary RTA summit was hitting its climax. Everyone was watching Shachiku, our legendary runner, who was busy pulling off a frame-perfect glitch. He lands the hit and kills the boss. The clock stops at an insane 25 minutes. Shachiku is the undisputed emperor of speedrunning, and we can see he's basically a god. He cleared a 100-hour RPG in 25 minutes. The interviewer can't believe how smooth it was, but Shachiku doesn't look happy with his time. He thinks about his normal practice streams, and how his rivals are always exchanging ideas. His reward for winning is more overtime work, and his chat is just full of laughs. The event ends with a big thank you, but Shachiku is already thinking about the next. He's frustrated that he missed a single glitch. Back home, he's back at his triple monitor setup. This guy is a total machine, guys. He's practicing the same wall clip over and over, because the success rate is only 30%. He's got 30 seconds left on his timer. He knows he can do better than this. Even the early game clips could be faster, so he's chugging energy drinks to stay awake. Suddenly, his vision starts to go blurry, and his hand slips off the controller. He just passes out right at his desk, but he wakes up floating in the void, hearing a voice talk about blessing lost souls. That's when a massive light engulfs the room. He's standing in a massive, realistic cathedral, and Ida, the princess, calls it a miracle. She tells her guards to announce the success. The mages are worried he looks pretty weak, but Ida approaches him with a serious look. She introduces herself as the Saintess of Salvation, and begs for him to lend his strength. She explains how demons are gushing out everywhere, and that the world will be destroyed soon. She calls our guy their very last hope. Ida kneels and offers him a holy sword, but Shachiku is just staring at her face. He realizes this is the opening of another verse. He thinks he's just having a vivid dream. Though he's confused about the camera angle, he usually plays the game in third person, so being in first person feels a bit weird. He wonders if he messed with his settings. His limbs move exactly like in real life. And guys, this environment is just too perfect. He decides he absolutely has to speedrun this. Ida is still trying to give him the sword. Instead of taking it, he just starts sprinting. The princess is left yelling for a stop. He runs full tilt at a solid wall, and then he just phases right through it. Ida's jaw drops as he vanishes into stone. He's narrating his actions like he's on stream, ignoring the princess while she holds the sword. She realizes she can't let him go alone, and uses her magic to change her appearance. She turns into a catgirl mascot named Danya. He's already in the capital city of Falshilla. He notices an adventurer trying to talk to him. This guy is Jien, a guild member, and he wants to show the newbie around. He's a friendly guy, but he's a tutorial. Shachiku just says, no interest, and keeps running. Jien is left stunned in a cloud of dust. Our guy calls this the Jien Senpai skip, because a well-timed side jump avoids the triggers. He remembers that this timing is actually hard, and failing it loses at least 4 minutes. Danya finally catches up to him in town. She's panting and looks completely out of breath. Jien is just standing there looking depressed, so she asks which way the hero went. She's terrified he'll die without his gear, while Jien is crying about being ignored. He feels like a suspicious door-to-door salesman. Danya doesn't have time for his feelings though. Shachiku reaches the forest of the dead quickly. Danya catches up and sees him standing there. Suddenly, he starts getting rid of his clothes. She's screaming shameless while hiding her eyes. He just picks up a random wooden stick and runs straight into a herd of zombies. Danya thinks he's lost his mind for real. He's attacking undead monsters with a literal twig, and he's doing it in nothing but underwear. A zombie gets a solid bite on him, and he just takes the hit without flinching. He's getting swarmed and bleeding from everywhere, which looks totally suicidal to anyone watching. Danya has to look away from the carnage, but then, A massive shockwave blows them back. Shichiku is standing over a pile of corpses. He says he's taken enough intentional damage now. He plans to take 0 hits from here. Danya tries to chase after him again, yelling that he's going to die from wounds. She prepares her healing magic to save him, but then she sees him start jittering. He explains that easy mode has a balance, where lower player health makes all enemies weaker. He needs the defense debuff from his underwear, but she just wants to heal him up. He calls her the will definitely heal you, Yuokai, now. She's an obstacle to his speedrun right now, so he has to outrun his own ally. He reaches Araki's castle in under 10 minutes. He finally lets her heal him at the entrance. She's exhausted and begs him to wear armor. She warns him about the puppet user Arachne, but he's already sprinting away from her. He wonders why her lines are slightly different, but then a giant spider familiar attacks. Danya screams for him to run away quickly, but he just stands still and starts jittering. He's hitting the monster with his wooden stick. Danya is confused because he's not doing damage. The spider is just as confused as she is. He explains this is the strange rod glitch, where hitting specific pixels multiplies his attack power. The wooden stick is now a cheat item, and a lucky red potion drops from RNG. Now it's time to enter the mid-boss dungeon. They find Arachne waiting on her web staircase. She starts her villainous monologue about human puppets. And guys, she's really into the drama. She vows that she won't let him leave. Shichiku just starts wall running right past her. Arachne just stands there in total silence. She's completely lost as she stares at Danya. Danya looks just as embarrassed as the villain. Arachne finally asks where the heck he went. One of her puppets points to the wall and says he just went right through it. Arachne screams at them for being so useless and sends every spider she has to find him. Danya finds the spot where he clipped through. She touches the wall and feels it's solid, but then she gets sucked in too. Shichiku is already halfway to the final boss. He says the game is full of jank. He finds a fall death zone that doesn't work, and Danya finally catches up to him again. She yells that he's just been screwing around, but he turns back with a serious expression. She begs him to save the world properly. He tells her he doesn't need mid-bosses, because in an any percent run, time is everything. He vows to be the fastest hero ever. Danya is actually moved to tears by this. Then he tells her they've reached the point. He jumps off a cliff into the darkness. Danya screams as she falls right after him. She's terrified until she realizes she's not dead. She looks up and sees him waiting calmly. They land safely in the final boss room. He uses his buff potion during the fall, complaining that it tastes like literal garbage. He's happy that the run is going well. He admits that first-person immersion is actually cool. Danya is still crying from the sheer terror. He looks at his timer one last time. He thinks about his day off tomorrow too. He's determined to wake up and keep running, faster than anyone else in the world, and even faster than his own previous record. That's when the final boss actually appears. Demon King Apocalypse towers over our naked hero. Shichiku tells him there will be no mistakes. He prepares his stick as the battle begins. The Demon King is offended by his presence. He calls him a lowly, arrogant human being. Danya is floating above them watching the fight. The king tells him to accept his purge. A massive explosion of dark energy hits him, but our guy just skips the dialogue triggers. He explains that the first phase is simple. He dodges every single tentacle with ease, and lands a hit on the king's leg. One hit would kill him instantly right now, but he just doesn't plan on getting hit. He's moving with superhuman speed and precision. Danya is amazed that he's actually winning this. He dodges a massive slam from the boss. She realizes he truly is a summoned hero. Shichiku's eyes are glowing with intense focus now. He lands the third and final required hit. The Demon King falls, cursing his name forever. Danya cheers because they actually did it together, but he tells her the second phase started. He says the first phase was actually harder. Now he's going to use the Shichiku step. Danya has no idea what he's saying anymore. He remembers failing this glitch at the event. Demon King transforms into his true form. He notes that this cutscene is unskippable, guys. The boss patterns are going to be random. He tells Danya to please pray for him. She doesn't know that pray is just slang. The boss screams and launches a massive attack. Shichiku dodges a vertical strike with a dash. He's waiting for a specific horizontal attack pattern. The boss charges up a massive beam instead. Our guy realizes he's got a bad pattern. The Demon King unleashes his full power now. He suddenly switches to a horizontal sweep. and our guy sees his golden opportunity arise. He thinks Danya's prayers might have worked, because the pattern is finally stabilizing for him. He jumps and starts running on the air. His timer hits 24 minutes and change. Danya is watching with her hands clasped tight. She's confused why he's running on the wall. He's using bugged ivy polygons as a path, stepping on pixels that shouldn't even be there. He matches the angle frame by frame perfectly. He goes straight for the boss's head core. The timer is almost at the world record. The Demon King is absolutely horrified by this. Shichiku lands the final strike with the stick. He launches himself off the boss's massive face. This is the peak of the Shichiku step. The boss shatters into a million glowing pieces. He groans about it being totally unforgivable and curses the hero as he dies. Danya is left standing in the silent room. She can't believe the war is actually over. She addresses him as the otherworldly hero and thanks him for fulfilling his divine mission. She says that she's actually the princess, and our guy waits for the ending movie. A narration box explains that peace is restored. Shichiku is happy with his new personal best. He thinks he could save even more time, but then he notices the movie hasn't started. Danya panics because she's still a cat girl. He's confused because the credits should be rolling. She wonders why her power isn't returning yet. He realizes that if she stays like that, the game clear trigger won't ever activate. Even though the boss is dead, nothing happens. He realizes he might be stuck here forever. And guys, the timer is still running. Welcome to the capital. Inside a shop, a tailor is welcoming a very special customer. He asks which skirt she wants, but he walks out showing way too much. Later, they finally found a place to eat. The food looks better than his old job. Danya-tan scolds him for being so flashy, though our guy swears he's being normal. She snaps her fingers to set a barrier, so that way nobody can hear them. Shichiku says he didn't go naked on purpose. You see, an invisible wall blocked the door, which is a common bug for speedrunners. Danya-tan thinks that's actually a huge problem. While she tries to enjoy her meal, Shichiku just stares at her for a second. He explains she's just a character in a game, which is honestly pretty hard for her to buy. But she can't ignore his weird powers, because he doesn't use any magic at all. It's like he's outside the world's logic. So she asks if his glitches changed her. She realizes his speedrun might have bugged the ending, and that's why she's still a cat. Shichiku insists he's never seen this bug before. Guys, he's basically swearing that he's innocent. She's definitely not believing him for a second. She wonders if there's any way to fix it. Our guy thinks for a moment and admits that there's still one way to fix everything. Just killing the boss is too basic, and you only get the boring normal ending. But if they hunt down the secret elite bosses, the game starts a new programming loop, which makes her head start to spin. Basically, the true ending resets all the data. He goes quiet as he thinks about home. Shichiku asks if he'll finally get to leave. Once she's back to being a princess, she confirms she can use time-crossing magic, so he clenches his hands together in relief. She looks down and starts feeling guilty about everything. She tells him she's sorry for dragging him here. Being summoned here must have been a total nightmare, but Shichiku just cuts her off right there. He tells her he actually loves being in this world. He still needs to go back for work, and because he wants to break some records, but being here really does make him happy. Danya-tan is actually touched by his kind words. Guys, he's about to ruin the moment. Shichiku starts sweating like a man on edge. She's confused why his mood shifted so fast. He admits that sitting still is actually making him miserable. Since he's a speedrunner, he feels like the timer is still running even while they're eating. She realizes he's a total weirdo and yells at him. So now they're heading to the guild. Our guy stares at the sky, realizing things just got real. That massive vortex is the source of monsters. Danya warns him to keep a low profile about his heroic deeds for now, since all evil stems from that dark swirl. Even defeating the boss won't stop the threat. She's worried the people will get too comfortable, but our guy is just impressed by her attitude. He thinks she's the perfect saintly companion. She whispers something to herself while looking pretty serious. Suddenly, he spots something he's been looking for. He asks if they can visit a shop. Then he runs straight at the door. And guys, he just clips through the walls. Danya screams for him to stop doing weird stuff. They walk through the city of Anvers together, and the graphics are so good he's convinced. But something's starting to feel strange. Danya's intelligence is way too high, because her speech patterns are way too flexible for an NPC. We know he's aiming for a true ending, but guys, he's actually starting to sweat. A loud horn blast cuts the air. Danya's face turns pale when she hears it. A guard on a flying mount screams about a monster. He yells that a beast is coming. A corrupted wyvern is heading for the city, and it's already broken through the outer barrier. People start panic running in every single direction. Danya gets ready for a serious fight. The dragon circles the square with a roar. She can't believe a monster would dare attack the capital. An explosion rocks the sky above them. She's totally confused because she didn't even move yet. Smoke clears to reveal our guy just standing there. He's holding a cheap wooden slingshot. He loaded it with some basic firecrackers. Since he just bought it at the shop, he tells her this'll be an easy win. You see, it's a fixed quest event. Danya has no clue what he's talking about. He knows every detail from his speedrunning days. She's just speechless at his absolute nonsense. He explains the dragon's spawn is set, so vibrating his body makes him faster. He calls this a rapid-fire shot technique. She's begging him to stop using glitches. The townspeople are staring at them with pure disgust. Guys, I'm starting to feel bad since they think he's gross. Some girls think he's cute, but definitely a creep. The shopkeeper points a finger and yells, "He's the guy who didn't bother with modesty." Our guy is stuck in a jam. Villagers think he's a demon spy, but the cat girl tries defending him. Guys, they're mad he was literally vibrating. She blames his weird gaming glitches, since the crowd's about to riot. Then an old woman steps up. She says a hero was summoned, and she sees something in him. She asks if he's the savior. Our guy can't even say no. Guys, these villagers think it's a scam, but she's dead sure he's human. He's just standing there confused, while she stares into his soul. She tells a heavy story about her village getting burned by monsters. That trauma gave her a skill, so she can spot demon auras. She grabs the hero's hands, begging him for a better world. She looks like she's really suffered. Our guy feels the weight of her hope. It's a heavy moment for everyone there. The angry villagers finally back off. He realizes the lady's village was part of the game's script. Ida explains it was taken over by a member of the Elite Four named Arachne. This world uses the game's lore, which means things are way more serious. Seeing tragedy in person hits different. He's played this quest a dozen times, but the reality of it is grim. She points out he's already won, but she still feels like a failure. She's supposed to be a saint, yet she couldn't protect her own people. He tells her she's his hero. Guys, he's basically her biggest fan. He explains how having her around helps him survive dark dungeons. She keeps him calm during fights, because she's always by his side. He admits he really loves her, which sends the poor girl into shock. He starts rambling about her popularity, and how the world functions like programming. He promises to find her a way home by hitting the true ending. The next day at the guild, everyone is losing their minds because the wyvern attack caused 0 damage. They think the investigators are lying, but then a new challenger appears. The guild master walks in to see what all the shouting is about today. Our guy walks into the guild with Danya, but someone is already waiting. Jien's back and still acting tough. He's fuming because he got ignored yesterday. You can see the trauma in Shachiku's eyes. Shachiku immediately bows and starts apologizing for his past behavior. He explains it was just a spinal reflex and he's totally sorry. You can't blame him since Jen's face triggers his speedrunning PTSD. Jen is just confused by the mention of mistakes. Shachiku tells him to forget he ever said anything. Jien starts getting all emotional, thinking Shachiku is mourning a brother. He wonders if a monster killed someone right in front of him, and then starts blaming himself for being too inexperienced. He starts crying and tells Shachiku to call him Big Bro. Danya watches this train wreck and decides it's better to stay quiet. She changes the subject and asks Jien for the guildmaster. Jien mentions she's currently at the royal castle. Shachiku wonders if she's dealing with those useless sages. Jien asks if he's here to finally register. He gives Shachiku a big welcome to Ida's shield. We meet Marone, the receptionist who runs the capital's main guild. She presents Shachiku with his official guild registration badge. Marone explains he'll start at F rank and climb up, and because Danya recommended him, he gets to skip the exam. Jen tells him he's lucky since that test is brutal. Shachiku already knows the lore thanks to his guidebook. Jen brags that the rewards here are top tier, and that the beautiful Queen Ida visits once a year. He mentions she's basically a goddess who rewards the core. Marone's face turns into a literal storm of anger. She smashes Jien's head and tells him to stop interrupting. Jen complains that she's always been way too violent. Shachiku is actually enjoying the realistic dialogue between the game characters. Guys, the devs really went overboard with the receptionist's backstory. Shachiku's hand is shaking because he's so hyped for this. Danya just sighs because her master is such a nerd. Marone tells him to put his hand on the device. A burst of magical data flies out of the crystal. Marone leans in to verify the registration name. She reads it out as Shachiku, which means wage slave. Jien thinks it's some exotic name from a far-off land. Marone looks at the stats and goes completely silent. She's shocked that he hasn't even leveled up once. Marone sends Jian away so they can finish the process. Danya realizes something and stops him right there. She asks if he actually beat the Demon King. Sashiku gives her a smug look and confirms it. Danya realizes she's traveling with a total maniac. Sashiku casts soundproofing magic so they can talk privately. He starts explaining the concept of his miraculous revolution. Danya is struggling to keep up with his speedrun logic. He explains that while speedrunning looks like a solo act, the runners actually share glitches and tips like a team. There are only 500 runners in the whole world. Danya imagines an army of nearly naked men running. Sashiku explains that in an any % speedrun, you just need the bare minimum to kill the boss. They used to take 4 hours using proper gear, until they discovered the strongest weapon, a wooden stick. This glitchy rod changed everything for the runner community, and with it, he finished the game in 25 minutes. He admits it makes the game harder since everything kills you. Danya is legally confused and decides to just stop thinking. Marone calls out to Sashiku to finish his registration. She hands over the box with a polite smile. That's when a presence appears behind them that stops everything. We finally see the guildmaster, Kira, and she's not dressed for modesty. Jen and Marone immediately stand at attention for their boss. Sachiku's heart skips a beat because he recognizes her. It's the legendary female warrior who never appears in speedruns. We've all seen wild character designs, but this is ridiculous. Sachiku gets flustered and starts shouting about a misunderstanding. Danya asks if he knows the relationship between these two. Sachiku remembers that Kira is the queen's best friend. Jien and Marone notice the master is in a foul mood. Kira stares down Sachiku with eyes that could kill. She ignores everyone else and speaks directly to Danya. Kira asks who this random guy is standing with her. Sachiku introduces himself and says he's a new member, and then he reveals that he's the otherworld hero. Jien and Marone lose their minds over his secret identity. Kira goes silent as the realization sinks in. She calls him a coward from another world. Danya's face goes pale as the room's temperature drops. Kira uses her appraisal skill and sees his level 1 status. She explains that she heard the news back at the castle, and that the hero supposedly lost his nerves and ran. Shichiku realizes that the NPCs interpreted his reset that way. Kira tells Danya not to cover for this weakling. She suddenly draws her blade with a flash of steel. Kira asks him how much he plans to mock them. She tosses a sword onto the ground in front of him, and tells him to pick it up and duel her. Kira says this guild has no room for level 1 cowards. Jin and Marone start panicking because Shichiku might actually die. Kyra tells them to relax since she'll use a wooden sword. She promises he'll only get some broken bones, not die. Jin tries to explain the imaginary trauma he invented for Shichiku. Kira gives him a cold smirk and a different option. She says he can use his shoddy little stick instead. Danya's eyes widen as she realizes what's about to happen. Shichiku happily accepts the duel with his broken rod. He says he wouldn't be a man if he backed down. Danya realizes this is a recipe for absolute disaster. That stick is the same one that slaughtered the Demon King. If he hits a human with that, it's game over. She tries to stop them before it's too late. Shichiku tells her he knows what he's doing. He smirks and says he'll finish this in a literal instant. Danya collapses to the floor as she sees the future. Kira gets into her combat stance with a serious face, and Danya screams for her friend's life as the duel begins. We're behind the guild training ground where a serious showdown's about to happen. Kira is facing off against our boy Shichiku. Danya and the rest of the party are watching, and Kira's already talking trash about him running away. She asks if he's gonna bolt again this time, but he just deadpans that he doesn't have a tail to tuck. She calls him impudent but gives him props for having guts, so she decides to actually put in some effort. Her blade starts glowing with a wild aura, and guys, she's not pulling any punches here. Jien screams that her armor is turning white, which means she's activating a given skill from the goddess. This specific one is called Valkyrie Suite, Etude, and it doubles her physical stats for a massive power spike. Danya thinks Shichiku stopped being human because of his weird tactics, so she begs him to stop before he gets killed. Kira just stares him down while the cat girl keeps panicking. She notices the girl's quite taken with him, then she tells him to get ready and charges. He's fast, like way faster than she expected. He closes the gap in a single frame, so she realizes she has to push her speed even further. She swings her blade and sends him flying with one hit, and he's buried deep into the stone wall. The crew's horrified because they think he's actually dead. Shichiku's bleeding, but glad his adventurer's gear has a defense bonus. Jien runs off to grab some potions immediately, while Danya uses recovery magic to patch him up. He thanks her and says that was a great time save. She has no idea what he's talking about. He explains that he lost on purpose, because the game programs this as a forced loss event for plot. From a speedrunner's perspective, dying here is just more efficient, even if the in-game Kira used to be way nicer. He feels completely recovered and starts geeking out about the magic. Danya's confused why he didn't use that weird rod he's carrying, but he tells her he'd never hurt Kira in front of her. She calls him a damn pervert and gives him a scratch for that. Marone shows up with a bunch of potions she just bought, only to find him already standing and looking fine. Jen's got even more potions, but they're totally useless now. Kira walks up and calls out to him, asking why he chose to lose that fight on purpose. Everyone else is stunned that she even noticed. She explains that he saw through her attack perfectly, and only a warrior better than her could pull that off. So she wants to know what he's actually hiding. Shachiku starts sweating because this dialogue isn't in the game scripts. He has to come up with a realistic reason fast, and he tells her he has no reason to beat her. He says she isn't his enemy, and they're friends who have to stop the Demon King together. She calls him a nasty man for being so smooth, but her attitude completely flips once he calls her a hero. She bows and offers an apology for being rude earlier. He just smiles and says it's all good if they're friends. She agrees and promises to work hard with him from now on. She sends the others away so she can talk to him and Danya. But before they go, she gets very serious and tells him that the whole world is relying on an otherworld hero right now. She clenches her fist and talks about her own pride. She gave up her noble life and trained since she was 5, all so she could be the one to kill the Demon King. Shichiku interrupts and casually mentions the Demon King's already dead. Hyra is absolutely losing her mind over this revelation. She thinks he's just telling a really bad joke. Danya looks like she's already accepted that her life is a fever dream. He explains that he killed the Demon King 25 minutes after being summoned. He tells her it was basically a speedrunning competition back home, and she thinks he's just completely insane. Danya tells her to just abandon common sense around this guy. Kira's world is crumbling while he just sits there. She eventually realizes that the mage wouldn't lie about something this big. It actually explains a lot of the weird incidents lately. She mentions a roar that came from Arachne's castle in the north, and Shachiku realizes that's only a 10-minute walk for a speedrunner. High-rank scouts reported groups of spider familiars in the area, and it looks like they're searching for something important. Arachne is one of the Demon King's Elite Four and a total psycho. She's famous for turning her victims into poison puppets. But the worst part is how she forces them to awaken. She puts humans in extreme situations to trigger their given skills. Since the goddess is fickle, you never know what power you'll get. Shichiku thinks this just sounds like a really cruel gacha system. She tortures beautiful girls specifically to farm for rare puppet abilities. He realizes the old lady from the capital might be a survivor. She was a victim 50 years ago who didn't become a puppet, and our boy is looking genuinely pissed off now. He calls the whole situation sickening, because the people are forced to rely on strangers just to survive. Kira worries that without the Demon King, Arachne will go rogue, and if they don't act fast, the capital is toast. When he hears the word fast, his gamer brain twitches. She sent out spies, but the demon might attack before they report back. She fears they can't postpone the fight for even a moment, and asks him if he's feeling the same pressure. She wonders if the royal army can even deploy in time. But Shichiku stands up with a huge grin and says they're going now. He's trembling with excitement because he wants to start the hunt. Kira's confused why he's shivering, but it's just because he's finally ready to speedrun a boss. He starts rambling about his world records and split times, and tells her he only needs 15 minutes to beat Arachne. She's speechless because that sounds impossible, so he explains that they still need some prep for safety. He tells her he needs her support for the plan to work. She thinks the plan is incomprehensible, but Danya says she's starting to trust his crazy ideas. Ira's still unsure about the whole thing. She scratches her head in frustration, but then she remembers she already promised to be his friend. Shichiku bolts out the door to hit the item shops, and we cut away to the snowy mountains in the north. This is Arachne Castle, and it looks pretty ominous. Inside, we see a spy being tortured by giant spiders. Arachne herself is giggling while watching him suffer. She's disappointed that he's already broken and calls him a defect. The spy can only scream in agony. She's not exactly dressed for company, and she's obsessed with finding the otherworld hero. She vows to turn him into her new favorite puppet. This old man is giving some serious advice about never trying to be a hero, because in his world the weak almost never beat the strong. He thinks victory is decided by gear and numbers before the fight even begins. But guys, our protagonist isn't exactly a normal soldier, since Shachiku's finally found the rare ore he's been digging for. He's thrilled that the RNG goddess finally gave him a break, while Dania and Kira are just glad to stop smashing rocks. They're in an abandoned mine preparing for a race, and Shachiku's explaining that this drop used to be guaranteed. He starts rambling about patches and random number manipulation. This totally flies over Kira's head because to her, it's just a rock. She knows these crystals are pretty for decoration, but they're way too brittle to be used for a real sword. Suddenly, Shachiku senses something moving in the woods, and he signals for the girls to stay back and be quiet. A huge two-headed Orthrus jumps out to turn them into lunch. Shachiku doesn't flinch and just swings his wooden stick, because one hit is all it takes to shatter the monster's skull. He acts like it's no big deal and just catches his breath. He's mostly just annoyed that the encounter rate at night is so high. Kira's losing her mind because he just one-shotted a boss-level monster. Danya's heart is racing, wondering what kind of outer world power he's got. Shachiku's ready to go home, but Kira tells him to wait, and points out that he needs to take the magic stone, because purifying stones is how people level up in this world. Shachiku realizes he's been skipping stones from every monster he's killed. Kira's worried because he's still technically level 1, so going up against the boss like Arachne is basically suicide. Our guy figures it's fine since he's not on a timer anymore, but then he sees the magic stone drop and starts groaning. It's pulsing with energy on the ground like a heart, and Shachiku looks like he's about to be sick. He reaches out to grab it with a look of pure disgust, and the moment he touches it, a bright light erupts. While he tells the girls that this is the worst part, the light gets brighter and covers the entire clearing. It's a standard RPG item acquisition animation, where the stone floats up and starts spinning around. It looks impressive to us, but Shachiku is just counting the seconds. Kira and Danya don't see the problem with the little sparkle. He turns around and tells them that this cutscene is too long, which means a 32-second loss every single time. The girls are just staring at him like he's grown a second head. He explains that even skipping costs him 10 seconds of runtime. Danya's sweating because he's prioritizing seconds over literal power. Kira's just speechless at his weird logic. She admits she's losing her bearings but finds him a bit charming. Danya notices that Kira's voice sounds way more lively than usual. She points it out and Kira gets a little flustered. It reminds her of when they were kids back in the capital. Danya quickly brushes it off as just her imagination. She changes the subject to the upcoming hunt for Arachne, while Kira goes back to being a serious commander. Sometime later, they arrive at the capital's Adventurers Guild. Marone greets Shachiku with a huge smile and a round of applause. A random adventurer is screaming because that stone didn't come from a weakling. Marone shows him to an enormous machine used for purification. They drop the stones in and fill it with a special solvent, and Marone warns him that raw magic stones contain dangerous miasma. If you guys absorb too much, you'll literally turn into a monster, so they use this machine to filter the bad stuff out. After the process is done, Shachiku finally hits level 4. He's enjoying the lights and sounds of the machine. But guys, he still hates that the level up cutscene is so slow. Kira stops his complaining and asks to see his unique skill. She's not sure if he can handle a real fight at level 4. Legends say heroes get a skill to kill the Demon King, but Shachiku's nervous because he didn't exactly get a warm welcome. Kira uses her high-level appraisal to read his status window. Marone and the generic guy are leaning in with huge expectations. They're hoping for an instant kill or a god-tier defense skill. But Shachiku's looking down because he knows he's just a normal guy. In the original game, the castle staff was super disappointed in the hero. Usually, you've got to beat the Elite Four to awaken your real power. Right now, his status screen is basically just a sad blank page. He feels bad for letting down the NPCs he finally likes. Kira suddenly gasps and asks what this weird language is. Shachiku's confused because he didn't think he had anything. She shows him the screen and says the letters are totally unreadable. She offers to transcribe it so he can take a look. The letters are incredibly complicated and hard to write. Shachiku leans in and his face goes pale immediately. The text is just a jumbled mess of broken symbols. So Shachiku screams that it's just garbage text from a glitch. Danya's confused why he can't read something from his own world. He realizes that cheating to kill the Demon King broke the game's code. Kira closes her eyes and makes a tough decision. She tells them she's going to fight Arachne all by herself. The others are shocked because Arachne is one of the Elite Four. She admits she doesn't have permission from the sages to do this. Marone warns her that going alone is way too dangerous. Kira explains that a great danger is approaching the capital soon. She needs to drive off the monster before things get worse. Shachiku looks at his one oar and knows he can't win. He followed them because of Danya, but now he's totally lost. Kira looks him in the eye and says she can't trust him. Shachiku apologizes for being so vague about his abilities, but he promises her that he actually has a strategy. Kira stares at him intensely, trying to see if he's lying. He explains that his wooden stick won't work on this boss. He says since they lack levels, they'll just use the power of money. The others are just baffled that he thinks gold is a weapon. The generic guy points out that S-rank mercenaries cost a fortune. Danya says their one ore is only worth 10,000 sen. Kira points out she hasn't exactly dressed for the weather or sage politics. Shachiku stays quiet for a second while a plan forms. He looks at them and says he can handle the money problem. He gives a creepy smile and says he's about to do something bad. He tells everyone they have to keep this a total secret. Marone thinks it's a game, but the generic guy is worried. Danya has a bad feeling that something crazy is coming. Shachiku starts stretching his arms like he's preparing for a world record. He lays out the ore and a standard wooden slingshot. First, he puts the ore back into his inventory bag, and then starts equipping and unequipping the slingshot at high speed. The girls are watching him vibrate in place like a broken toy. He suddenly stops and gives them a confident thumbs up. He's relieved because it looks like he did the trick correctly. Marone points out that he's currently holding absolutely nothing, but he tells her he's actually holding a ghost slingshot. He reaches into the air and starts pulling items out. Because hundreds of shining ores start spilling onto the table, everyone in the room starts screaming in pure terror. Shachiku's cheering because he's now got 999 ores. Marone looks like she's having a stroke while the others panic. He tells them it's just a safe duplication bug and not to worry. Kira notices that every single ore has the exact same shape. Danya screams that flooding the market will crash the economy, and Kira realizes this man is a danger to the world. He just keeps repeating that he really does have a strategy. She looks at him with eyes full of pure judgment. Danya starts biting his head to stop him from doing more damage. Shachiku drops 900 ores on the desk. Guys, look at the clerk's terrified face. She's thinking this has to be a scam, but her magic monocle says it's all real. Our guide tells her to hurry it up, so she screams to empty the gold vaults, because he's literally draining the guild's entire supply. Shashiku's just annoyed about the time loss, while the staff hauls out giant sacks. He bags the gold and bolts instantly. His teammates can't even keep up with him. The clerk's left wondering what just happened. He's running because the guild opened at 9, and he's got a strict schedule to keep. Kira wonders if he can only talk while sprinting. A messenger bird drops a letter for her. It's from someone named Marone, and Kira's shocked by how perfect the timing's. She yells for Shachiku to stop for a bit, because an S-rank party's in the North Plaza. We cut to the capital's crowded town square. Everyone's buzzing about a group called Silver Dragon Fang. The crowd's desperate for autographs and photos, and this mage girl named Aliha's loving it. She starts charging 100 sen for signatures. You've even got to pay to pet the wolf. These guys look more like dancers than adventurers, but we see a hooded figure watching them. Their leader, Mashamu, tells Aliha to quit playing. He asks the crowd where the hero's hiding. He heard a hero was summoned recently and wants to recruit them for his party. He claims they'll defeat the Demon King together. The locals are impressed by his bravado. He demands to be led to the guild, but he notices someone in the crowd pointing, and a man suddenly falls over screaming. The guy's terrified out of his mind. A dark, shadowy monster starts bubbling up. Aliha screams that they've been exposed. The wolfman spots the shadow beast and prepares a heavy punch to the face. He levels the thing with one giant swing. Aliha starts charging up her own magic spell and blasts a crater into the cobblestone. She tells the monster to stay down, while Mashamu complains about all the fake heroes. He helps a young man off the ground. Aliha promises her handshakes are free for now. She thanks the hooded woman for the tip. The old lady's just relieved they're safe. Mashamu's surprised she saw through the monster's disguise, so he praises her for staying quiet. He explains that causing a scene causes panic. It's always better to call for help secretly. The old lady starts shaking and apologizing, because she's still haunted by her past. Mashamu realizes she's been through something horrific, so he tells Aliha to give her incense. He promises that the hero will save everyone, but once they're alone, his tone changes. He says the hero won't even get a turn. Back on the main street, the clock's ticking. Kira's still trying to keep up with Shashiku. Our guy starts doing continuous cartwheels, because it's actually twice as fast as running. We see a flashback of him mashing buttons. Speedrunners in his world literally got tendinitis doing this. It was eventually banned for being a health hazard. The girls think his world sounds like a nightmare. Kira just stares at him in silence, and realizes the more she knows him, the more of a mystery he becomes. She thinks back to her time in the castle. We jump back 11 years to the palace. A young Kira is fighting with the guards, and shouting that she won't let them leave. She's trying to protect the young Princess Ida. A hand suddenly covers the princess's mouth. The chief priest, Melina, tells her to stop. She says Ida was born to be a saintess. That means there's no time for childhood games. Kira screams that this isn't normal training. You can see the pure rage in her eyes as she accuses the priests of bullying. She saw them using potions to hide bruises. They were literally whipping the princess in secret. Melina says it's all for her spiritual growth. The summoning ritual requires 10 days of chanting, and Ida passed out after only 2. The stars only align once a century, so they can't afford to fail the ritual. Melina reminds Kira that she's just a noble and asks if she wants a dark age. Kira's trembling with anger at the logic because they're torturing a child for a hero. She calls the entire room a bunch of idiots. She asks the guards why they even have swords. You can tell she's reached her breaking point. Melina calls her a brat who knows nothing. She dares Kira to do the fighting herself. Then she mocks Kira for having no skills. She says Kira can only bark like a dog. But then we hear a loud metal clang. Kira's grabbed a sword from a shocked guard. She can barely lift the giant heavy blade. She declares she's from a house of valor and vows to become the world's strongest swordsman. She'll beat the Demon King so Ida doesn't have to. Ida looks at her with total adoration. Kira quit music and studied the blade instead. By 15, no one could beat her in combat. At 18, she won the kingdom's legendary armor. But guys, she still couldn't stop the training. Ida became a saintess with record-breaking power. Her struggle didn't end with the summoning. Back in the present, Kira looks at Shachiku. She feels like she's finally strong enough now, and wants to share the heavy burden. She watches Shachiku running away into the distance. Then she notices something very wrong. He's just moving right past the plaza. She screams that they missed the S-rank party. You'd think he'd want the extra help, but Shachiku doesn't even look back at her. He flatly says he won't hire them. Kira's jaw drops at the sudden rejection. He apologizes for not saying so earlier, but he never actually agreed to the plan, so the legendary party's getting skipped entirely. She chases after him through the empty streets. We're heading back 50 years to sea, and this is Tadanka village, where a girl named Loran lives. Her younger sister Norin is energetic, but the local merchant stops them. You can tell the vibe's off, since Lord Haas warned everyone about monsters. He tells the girls to stay safe, and they're the prettiest pair around. Norin just laughs at his constant praise. A farmhand asks for some jam later. Even the village elders give them warnings. They have to be home before dark. The sisters finally head into the woods. Loran starts picking berries in the brush. Norin asks about heroes from another world, cause she's been reading old adventure logs, and wants to see all those places. Loran points out her sister's weak body. Norin claims she'll get given skills soon. That's a special power from the goddess. She thinks training makes an adventure easy. Loran jokes they'll be old by then. Loran suddenly stops and looks around. She smells something burning in the air. The sisters look over the cliffside together. Guys, this is the worst case scenario, as giant spiders have invaded their home. They watch their village burn in horror. Norin tries to call for Lord Haas. A massive spider eye appears behind them. The monster says it finally found some. It wants pretty faces for its queen. Norin is thrown down and called trash. The spider wants to brand them properly. Loran screams as she's stuck in webbing, while the monster waits for better skills. Everything is ruined in a second. Loran suffers as the spider attacks her. She cries out for her sister one last time. Loran wakes up screaming in the present. She's sweating and gasping for her breath. It's just a nightmare from her past. She realizes she's safe in the capital. Loran tries to tell herself it's okay, but the memories of that day linger. She sees a spider web and panics, because the trauma never really goes away. We're back at the ruins of Tadanka. Our guy decides to take the highway. Kira and Mio look at the wreckage. This place was destroyed 50 years ago. A royal decree forbids anyone from entering. Things here haven't even weathered at all. Kyra finds an old pitchfork in the dirt. She sees broken glasses and a hat. It's clear people died right where they're standing. I'm telling you, this guy has zero chill. Mio tells Kira she needs to hurry up. This is the hardest spot in his speedrun. Even though the castle is still far, a swarm of spiders drops from above. They're surrounded by Arachne's underlings in seconds. Kira draws her blade to start fighting, but our guide tells her to stop. He needs her to save her skills. Fighting takes too much time and runs, so they're just going to dash through. Mio is terrified but follows his lead. We're seeing true speedrun logic here. Since the spiders move in fixed patterns, he grabs a bag from his belt, and he starts throwing out gold coins. We get an explanation of this power, which lets him escape any enemy encounter. You've gotta love how efficient he is. Kira is furious that they're just running. She hates wasting money just to flee. She's also disgusted by his lack of sorrow. To him, this tragedy is just a game. We finally see the Demon King's throne. A horned girl rings a small bell. She calls her children of the wicked. She stands before a giant dragon's skull. This is Morphomet, and she's not exactly modest, and she wants that hero's head now. Guys, we're starting with Shachiku's team mining for ore, but at the demon capital, Morphomet looks grim. Arachne walks into the round table room, and the others tell her she's late. Raspy mocks the Spider Queen for her memory. Duke Brahms tries to play the calm elder. Raspy just keeps insulting everyone's age. Arachne looks like she's about to snap. The brat points out the queen's wrinkles. Brahms sighs at the childish behavior, until Arachne screams for her to shut up. Raspy notices the sudden shift in the air, because Morphomet demands silence from her subordinates. She tells them they've already realized the truth. Their leader, the Demon King Apocalypse, is gone. Arachne and Raspy look totally stunned. As Morphomet begins to break down, screaming that her papa's actually dead, Brahms acts sad since the king was invincible. She cries that he was so kind. Morphomet asks why they aren't crying too. She orders them to show some grief. Raspy starts fake sobbing to avoid a fight. Morphomet explains that just yesterday, a hero from another world killed him. They can't believe he died so fast. Raspy bursts out laughing at the absurdity. Guys, she thinks it's a total joke, but Morphomet grabs her by the face. She asks if the slime is mocking her. The princess looks ready to commit murder. She admits it sounds impossible, but she saw it with her eyes. She wants them to watch his end. She activates a magic projection, all the Eye of the Dead to show them. The room goes dark for the replay. Everyone leans in to see this hero. They see Shachiku appearing in the castle. Arachne's eyes go wide at the sight. Raspy yells because the hero is half-dressed. We see the cat girl falling too. Shachiku hits the king with a bang. The king tries to attack, but our guy dodges every single strike. Brahms notes the king died in 3 hits. They realize he doesn't have a sword. He's just using a plain wooden stick. The demons think he's definitely cheating. The king falls after a final smack. Brahms and Arachne are left speechless. As the Spider Queen starts grinning strangely, Morphomet ends the projection right there. You can tell she's out for blood. She calls the hero's victory childish, and vows to kill him for the insult. Morphomet turns her attention toward Arachne. Sensing that the queen is hiding something, she demands any info she's got. Arachne looks at the princess, and hates being bossed by a kid, but she just gives a dark smile. She tells the girl she knows nothing. Morphomet stares at her with deep suspicion. Later, Arachne returns to her own castle. She walks through the halls alone. The queen is obsessed with Shachiku's power. She plans to kill Morphomet eventually, and take out the other elites too. Her plan is to turn Shachiku into her own personal puppet, guys. She believes her special skill makes it possible. She reveals her legendary power, Karna Kavacha. It's a skill that provides absolute defense. She knows Shachiku uses physical attacks, so his wooden stick won't hurt her. She calls her shield the strongest ever, but against the hero's own weapon. She thinks she's the only one who wins. She imagines herself as the world's ruler. Arachne's tired of being the loser. She wants a utopia of total obedience. The Spider Queen laughs with pure excitement. She yells for her underlings to move and bring the hero to her castle. Suddenly, Arachne stops in her tracks. She hears a heavy rumbling sound nearby. Shachiku and his team are standing there. Shachiku just gives a casual greeting. Arachne looks like she's seeing a ghost. Our squad finally reaches the boss room. This lady doesn't look friendly at all. Our guy just gives a casual greeting. Kira recognizes her immediately as a threat. This is Arachne of the Elite Four. Arachne is one of the Demon King's elites, so Kira is ready for a life or death battle. Shachiku explains that we are in trouble, since the boss will spawn endless spider mobs, and he'll be defenseless during the fight. Danya thinks they can win this easily, but we have to look at the patterns, because since Shachiku took 0 damage earlier, the game bumped the difficulty to very hard. The girls are starting to lose it. He explains that we can't one-shot her, so Danya has to clear the trash mobs. The timer is ticking as the boss laughs. She wasn't expecting the hero to show up. Arachne wants to keep him here forever. She even thinks you brought her new toys. She thinks she's being very considerate by turning everyone into her little puppets. A massive wave of pressure hits the room, which hits Kira with a nasty stun effect. The poor knight is shaking in fear. She can't believe she's even still alive. Kira realizes she hasn't been physically wounded, but the sheer bloodlust is totally paralyzing. Her body just won't move an inch. Danya screams out for her to wake up. Guys, Shachiku is just annoyed by the RNG. Arachne hitting that stun was terrible luck. He tosses Danya a purple mana potion. It's time to switch to the backup strat. He's already calculated all the math, and Danya finally understands her role. Arachne thinks their struggling is just cute. Danya starts blasting the spiders with fireballs. She's a bit of a glass cannon, but she's holding the line for now. Kira is still stuck on the floor. She watches Shachiku walking toward the monster, while she's too terrified to even stand. Kira starts having a major internal crisis. Because she's supposed to be the strongest, she thought she was finally being useful, but now her sword is just lying there. She's crying because she feels like a failure. Shachiku tells her to keep her eyes open. He wants her to watch the finale, a speedrun finale. Arachne tells the hero he's too late, because she's protected by Karna Kavacha. It's a legendary, absolutely invincible defense skill. She can nullify any physical or magical blow. The boss thinks you're destined to die, but then Shachiku just bops her head. He's just running right past her defense. Arachne is confused because that actually hurt. Danya can't believe an attack actually worked. Wait, you won't believe what he's holding. He's just pelted her with a coin. See, this boss is technically a gimmick fight. Throwing coins shouldn't be an offensive move, and that's exactly why it works. In the game's broken code, throwing money isn't labeled as an attack. It's actually special action for running. Since you can't run from a boss, the damage property just loops into a hit. Arachne is screaming because she's being bullied. Danya keeps the little spiders off him, while Shachiku just keeps throwing that cash. Arachne is getting really mad at these humans. She starts glowing for her big transformation, but Shachiku just keeps the rhythm going. He's pelting her face with constant coins. This actually triggers a massive knockdown. That knockdown just skipped a whole cutscene. Arachne is losing her mind in frustration. She doesn't have the health to transform. Kira is just staring at this absurdity, while a guy just stands there throwing change. The Spider Queen is honestly just pathetic. Is this really how a hero fights? Arachne is literally spitting up from the pain. She looks like a total clown now. Shachiku doesn't care about the common sense, or the tragedy of this world's lore. He only has one thing on his mind: optimization. Kira decides that this is just ridiculous. She's actually smiling at how stupid it is. Danya is still working hard on defense, but then her fire magic starts fizzling. She's already out of mana for the day. Shachiku only needs a few more hits. Danya is frustrated by her low stats. A huge spider leaps right at her. She closes her eyes and prepares for impact. Suddenly, a sword flashes through the air. Kira is back in the game, guys. She's finally snapped out of her stun. She tells Shachiku to handle the boss. The knight will protect the perimeter now. Shachiku says we only need 4 hits. Arachne is literally begging him to stop. She promises to swear fealty to him. She offers her land, castle, and puppets. She's terrified of dying such a lame death. She's crying and pleading for her life. Shachiku stops and looks at her coldly. This world has suffered for 50 years. Everyone just wanted the monsters to go. He tells her that time is more important than her life anyway. He tosses the final handful of gold, and we stop the timer right there. Boss dead. Run saved. The giant spider boss finally goes down for good. But Shachiku didn't even break a sweat. Arachne's body just fades away into light, leaving behind a single skeleton as loot. Shachiku looks like he's thinking, and he picks up a broken butterfly memento. Kira and Danya are standing there in total shock. Kira asks if the fight finally ended. Our guy doesn't care, he's just disappointed in his time. Guys, the entire castle is starting to fall apart, so Kira tells everyone to get close to her. She's holding a magic tool that allows instant teleportation. They need to get back to the capital now, because the whole place is turning into rubble. You guys can see the spiders fleeing the ruins. It looks like the boss fight is over. Back at the capital's Adventurers Guild, the trio arrives in a flash of light. Jen sees them and starts waving like a maniac. He's thrilled to see his master and Danya safe. Shachiku just looks at him with a dead stare, because he's exhausted from all the running. Jien hands him a rare item called Jailbreak Thread. Why are you looking so confused, Shachiku? Since Jien thinks they're still heading to the boss, Shachiku realizes Jien has no idea they've finished. Kira points out it's not even 9030 yet, and Jien tells them to stay alive out there. Our guy doesn't have the heart to tell him. He decides to just keep the truth hidden, so the news of the victory doesn't leak out. Meanwhile, at the Demon King's round table, guys, the demons are actually laughing at the death. The demon girl calls Arachne the absolute weakest member. The glasses demon thinks they're being too harsh, and notes that strength gives them the right to mock. He starts connecting the dots about the hero. It's hard to believe the Demon King was defeated, and if he's got future sight from a goddess. Shachiku's movements were just way too polished. He thinks the hero can't win with a stick, because humanity has been losing for thousands of years. He wonders if Arachne had a hidden weakness, and you can see him replaying the fight footage, and he realizes the gold coins were the key. He stops himself from guessing any further. Preconceived notions are dangerous in a war like this, which means the hero is now an unprecedented threat. yet. The old demon wants to avoid this fight entirely. He sighs while the little demon girl watches him. She thinks there's more to that wooden stick, and you can tell she's way too interested now. Shachiku wakes up later in a soft bed. He realizes he's been sleeping for a long time, and he wonders what time it actually is. He sees the clock and nearly jumps out of bed. Kyra and Danya hear a noise and walk in. Our guy forgot he's only wearing his boxers, which makes the princess scream and cover her eyes. He's frantically looking for his phone and his clothes. Danya just stares at him with a blank expression. Kira tells the idiot to just put something on. They eventually sit down to have a serious talk. Shichiku apologizes for being a mess earlier. Danya asks if he's actually awake for real now. We see him recap the last few days' events, and he's worried about his work being okay. He notices Kira is wearing something very different. She swapped her armor for some fancy civilian clothes, which Shachiku recognizes as a specific DLC costume. Kira stays silent while he nerds out internally. She wants you to rest your mind and body, and you can see she's blushing a bit now. She asks him if he has anything to say. She's worried the new outfit looks weird on her, so Shachiku takes a second to process the look. He tells her it's not weird at all, guys. In fact, he thinks it really suits her, while Kira turns bright red and looks away. Shachiku has no idea why she's acting so strange. Danya watches the tension with a knowing smirk, because she's the one who suggested the walk. Shachiku mentions there's one place he needs to go. They head out into the sunny streets together. So Kira starts looking at him a bit differently. She notices he actually has quite a nice face. She starts blushing again and shakes her head. She tells herself to get a grip immediately, and reminds herself they're in a national crisis. Danya notices the princess is deep in thought. She compares Kira's panic to her own calm reaction, and starts wondering if the two are a couple. She gets shocked, thinking they're in that relationship. Shachiku thinks Kira is just acting buggy today. Suddenly a little kid points at him and shouts. He calls him the famous vibrating hero. The mom tells him to stop saying that, guys. The people nearby start whispering about the hero. A tailor recognizes him and looks totally stunned. Shachiku is suddenly surrounded by a massive crowd. Since Jien told everyone the story of the fight, they all know he's already finished with Arachne. He feels like he's at a speedrun gaming convention. Another kid walks up and pulls on his sleeve, and asks you to do the vibrating thing again, because this event wasn't in the original game world. Danya gives him a little nod of approval. He actually starts vibrating to make the kids happy. They finally arrive at the refugee quarter of town. An old lady answers the door looking very tired. She recognizes the hero and looks surprised. She apologizes for not having any chairs for them. Shachiku shows her the broken butterfly he found, and he tells her this dropped from the boss. The old woman stares at it with wide eyes. It belonged to a girl named Norin, so Danya realizes this was a very personal quest. The woman still has nightmares about that day. Her sister was killed right in front of her, which is why she felt so much regret. She's sure the bad dreams will stop now. She thanks the hero with a tearful smile. Shichiku just looks at her with a soft expression, and the old lady looks like a weight lifted. They wave goodbye as they leave her house. Kira admits you have a good heart after all, and you can tell she's changed her opinion. Shichiku just stares at the ground for a bit. He explains that was just a simple subquest. The girls don't understand what a subquest is. He says it's just lore, guys, nothing important, which means the reward was only one potion, but he still wanted to return the memento. The girls stay silent and just look at him. He wonders why they're not saying anything back. They're just touched by how sensible he's being. He looks confused by their sudden emotional reaction. They all shout in unison as they keep walking. They head back toward the main guild building. Marone sees them and rushes over looking panicked. Shachiku has no idea what's wrong with her, and you can see she's actually pretty angry, and she tells them the S-rank party is depressed. Shachiku apologizes for skipping the long guild tutorial. Marone starts laughing because he's so blunt, while she wipes away a few happy tears. She's just glad that everyone came back safely, but then her face goes completely serious again. She hands Kira an official letter with a seal. So the princess reads the urgent reply from the capital. She smirks at how fast the old sages moved. She needs to go make a report to the bosses, and she tells them she had a fun day. Kira promises to cover for you and your powers, and tells them both to enjoy their day off. And you can see Shachiku and Danya walking away. Shachiku notes that the street is weirdly empty now, and he realizes it's just the two of them. This is the first quiet moment they've had. Shachiku stops and looks at her for a second. He's been wanting to say something for a while. He remembers when she was trapped by the spiders, because he feels bad for putting her in danger. Danya just listens to him without saying a word. He thinks his backup strategy was way too risky. He knows NPCs can be healed with potions, but still. Danya tells him there's no need to apologize. She thinks it's strange how he treats her, and points out that he calls this world artificial, but he clearly cares about the people in it. She laughs and says she's just messing with him. She went on the mission because she believed, because she has high expectations for him now. Shichiku is left speechless by her sudden honesty. She laughs again and calls him by his name. He realizes it's the first time she's done that. He thinks about how strange his name sounds here. He wonders if he should have picked a real name. Suddenly, a group of armored soldiers rushes in. They surround the duo and point their spears, and Danya immediately gets into a fighting stance. The head knight identifies him as the hero, and tells him he must come to the castle. Shichiku realizes this event isn't in the game scripts. A voice calls out and tells the knights to stop, and tells them to treat the hero as a guest. But then a woman steps out of a carriage. Shichiku looks like he's seen a ghost, guys, and Danya is completely frozen in her tracks. They're looking at a woman who looks like Ida, while the mysterious princess stares back at them. But to understand what he has just walked into, we have to leave him standing there for a minute. This is Ada, the strongest saintess in the kingdom's history. Deep inside the capital's castle, we find the princess's private tower, where she tells the guards to leave. The lift starts to move up, and Shichiku is thinking about the timeline, because Ada and Danya shouldn't meet yet. Danya has been quiet for a while. Our guy wonders if he's hit a bug. Suddenly, Danya tells the princess to stop, calling the royal by the name Ain. The princess asks if the hero already knows. Then she does something totally unexpected, throwing some gel pads across the room and slamming her hand onto the sofa. Guys, the beautiful princess is actually a dude. Shichiku is totally losing his mind now. Danya explains that this is the hero and introduces the man as Ada's brother. Shichiku just stands there staring in shock. He's completely confused about who this is, because Ada is supposed to be an only child. He's certain this NPC doesn't exist. You see, Shichiku memorized every single character, and a body double was never listed. Ain notes the hero couldn't possibly know, since he technically isn't supposed to exist. The previous king was a total womanizer and ended up having an illegitimate child. It's a pretty awkward story for a meeting. Ain spent his childhood ignored in slums, but since he looks just like Ada, the royals brought him in as a double. Shichiku thinks this guy has a nasty tongue. Only the king and Kira know he's here. Shichiku's brain is still stuck on the lore. Danya says the hero has zero common sense, but Ain says there's no time for talk. He wants the secret behind the Arachne win. The hero and the catgirl worry. Ain explains that defeating demons is political. Shichiku's speed is making the sages nervous, so the prince has to cover for him. He describes the sages as a royal parliament. Shichiku remembers the name from the game, but they only appeared in the fan books. The sages are terrified of the demon king. We know he's already dead though. Ain says the sages are demanding answers. He tells them that Kira will lie, but he wants to see the truth. That's why he's meeting the hero personally. He wants a detailed report on his power. Danya gives Shichiku the green light, and he agrees to tell him everything. Ain listens closely to the hero's story. You guys are about to hear something crazy. The prince says he won't be surprised. Then Shichiku tells him the king is dead. You can see his brain just stop working. Shichiku starts rambling about speedrun categories and glitches, while Ain screams there's a limit to abnormality. He clutches his head in total disbelief, and Danya agrees it'll only cause confusion. Ain starts biting his thumb while thinking. He decides to trust his sister's word, so he'll try to handle the sages. But he points a finger at Shichiku and yells he hasn't trusted him yet. He's still weirded out by the power. He has an urgent mission for our guy. He wants him to rebuild Tadanka village. Danya is shocked he's asking for construction. The village was left in total ruins, and its location makes it prime real estate. Ain wants to stop demons moving in. He needs to house some capital refugees, since the hero claims to be fast. He asks if Shichiku needs 2 weeks. Danya screams that 2 weeks is impossible, but the prince just says he should try. You can see the doubt in his eyes, because his real goal is to stall. He's already hired laborers to do construction. This is just a test of Shichiku's skill. He says this is a personal challenge. He even offers a hug if he fails. Shichiku asks if he can build houses, and Ain says that'd take even longer. You guys won't believe how he reacts. Shichiku says rebuilds aren't just for speed, but it's different from the spider boss. He says he'll need 30 minutes. Ain's face goes blank with total shock. He asks if Shichiku is mocking him. Shichiku is confused by the sudden anger. Ain screams that rebuilding villages takes decades. The hero points out the 2-week deadline, and Ain calls him an absolute idiot. Guys, he's dealing with a power-tripping boss. Suddenly, Danya screams for them to stop. Now we see Danya taking full control. She tells Ain to stop the rants. She tells him to reflect on himself, and the prince immediately looks totally defeated. He mumbles a quick apology while sweating. You can tell he's the submissive type. Danya asks Shachiku to forgive the discourtesy. She admits his glitches aren't easily trusted, but she promises he'll get it done. She tells her brother to be calm. Shachiku is offended by being called weird, and Ain eventually gives in to her. That night, under the crescent moon, Shachiku says he'll finish before noon. He invites the prince to come watch, and Ain says he might check later. He waves them off with a sigh. The elevator starts heading back down, and Shachiku ponders the prince's existence. He thinks about forum threads from home. He feels like the prince is human. It's the peak of joy for fans, seeing things that weren't in the game. He looks worried about his construction route. If there are unknown elements like Ain, the biggest threat to speedruns is irregularity. Danya asks what's wrong with his face. He thinks it's too late to worry, and just prays he can finish tomorrow. Meanwhile, at the outskirts of Tadanka village, some goblins are getting totally slaughtered. A mysterious woman watches from the shadows. She casts a giant fire spell, hitting the ruins, where 3 adventurers stand. You see, these guys are S-rank elites. They've been clearing monsters for the crown. Mashamu says they just got a letter. The hero will be arriving here tomorrow. Eliha is skeptical about the hero's strength. They think it's an investigation request, and Mashamu says they should apologize tomorrow. Suddenly, the wolf warrior senses something wrong. Eliha asks him what he's looking at, and he growls that a demon's nearby. The party goes on high alert immediately. Little stares into the darkness with snarls. A massive shadow forms in the ruins. Guys, this isn't a normal monster fight. A dark, slime-like creature bounces forward. Mashamu is surprised to see a slime. You guys won't believe how fast it is. The slime shreds through the wolf warrior, and Mashamu screams for his fallen friend. The slime starts morphing into a girl. She licks her hand and mentions taste. Mashamu asks if she's a special species, and the girl asks if she's right. Mashamu swings his giant sword in rage, but the girl just stares at him. He realizes he missed her core completely. He can't stay calm after seeing death. The demon girl regenerates while mocking them. Mashamu tells the brat to shut up. Eliha runs to check on the warrior. Mashamu tells the mage to get ready, demanding 200 years of her mana. Eliha realizes this thing is top tier. She starts charging her most powerful rune. She hasn't gone wild in 2 centuries. The demon girl says she's been waiting. The adventurers charge forward inside giant flames. Mashamu says the tuition for class is life. Later, the demon girl sits by fire. Guys, she really just finished a meal. She looks at the broken sword nearby. She thinks the adventurers were totally boring. You can see the carnage left behind. She yawns while stretching her arms out. She thinks the world is totally outdated. She thinks isekai is the current trend. She picks up the scroll with crests, and she smiles while reading about Shachiku. She's excited to finally meet the hero. Dark energy starts oozing from her body. She'll get all his secrets out, and then get a taste of him. We'll see if our speedrunner survives her. Kira starts things off by mentioning they've already met Ayan. She thinks the kid's pretty crafty. Our guy notices she's not exactly dressed for company. He asks if they're on bad terms, but she says Ain only likes Ada. Danya thinks the kid actually likes Kira. Our guy feels a bit left out. While the NPCs chat about other NPCs, suddenly, someone waves them down from afar. We finally reach Tadanka village, guys. They head inside a large tent to talk. This eye patch guy leads the Silver Dragon Fang, and he introduces his elf mage and wolf fighter. They've got a scroll signed by Ada herself. They're here to help kill some demons. Hyra introduces herself as the daughter of Victus. She shows off her own guildmaster medal. The leader's glad he can skip the formalities. Our guy recognizes these 3 names immediately, since they're the mercenaries you summon in battle. He's actually relieved to see some familiar faces, but as the tent curtain opens, you see he's just standing there in silence. The elf girl is way too excited. She's staring at his basic wooden stick. See, this isn't actually an elf named Eliha. It's a high-grade slime that eats brains. Guys, she's already devoured the real party, and we know he's an easy target. Kira thinks they seem reliable enough for now. She introduces Shachiku as the summoned hero, and then she points toward the cat. Danya goes full mascot mode for the crowd. The wolf is apparently jealous. She speaks human. These 3 have no idea she's actually a high-ranking official in a cute outfit. The fake Eliha calls out to Shachiku. She asks how he beat that Arachne boss. He's embarrassed and calls it a speedrun. The mercenaries have never heard that word before. Kira finds the whole conversation very interesting. The slime thinks this is his secret magic. She claims her goal is mastering all magic, so she wants to learn his speedrunning. She grabs his hands to seal the deal. She's really laying the damsel act on thick. Kyra's eyes go dark from the blatant flirting. You guys know how easily men get played. Our guy is falling for the trap. He grabs her hands right back with passion. He's ready to teach her every single glitch. Kira finally snaps and starts screaming at him. She pulls him away from the beautiful woman. She's furious. He's revealing his secrets so easily. She thinks he's just a total simp now. As a veteran, you have to help newbies. Kira's honestly just confused by his gamer lingo. He explains that these speedrun routes aren't just things he invented by himself, but are the result of hundreds of runners. Kira thinks it sounds more like a job, but he says they need new blood, so the chances of finding discoveries go up. Even a total newbie found a major skip. He wants to build a community of runners, even if he's up against a scary man. Kira and the others are just totally stunned. The slime realizes eating him will be easy. Danya hits him with a Neko punch instead. She tells him to save the recruiting for later. Shachiku turns his attention back to Kira. Since the rebuilding route isn't the true ending, he tells the party they're starting right now. Danya tells him to hold his horses. They have one thing left to do first. The group stands before a small, lonely grave. It's a memorial for the destroyed Tadanka village. She gazes down with a heavy heart, taking in the painful loss. Everyone closes their eyes to offer a prayer. We really hope these souls find some peace. Our guy takes the moment very seriously. Danya's human speech is surprisingly good for this. Now it's time to get down to business. Kira looks like she's seeing a ghost. Our guy pulls out a literal frying pan. Everyone is wondering what the hell he's doing. It's just like those Dark Souls ladle runs. You guys won't believe how this works. Shachiku arrives at the entrance of the Falshla dungeon to start his gathering quest. Guys, the rules here say miasma makes monsters respawn exactly 1 day after dying. They sprint through the first floor halls, because gathering materials is the key to rebuilding. The local knight thinks Shachiku's focus is lame. A monster blocks the path ahead of them, which is just a common little frogman guard. Shachiku thinks fighting it is a waste of effort since he's on a schedule. The monster charges, but our guy doesn't even bother to draw his weapon. He just weaves right past the mob without slowing down for a second. The knight screams at him to stop, but Shachiku just keeps on running. He explains they're only targeting the mini-bosses, as we know. Guys, you can tell the party is already confused by his weird strategy. Danya and Kira agree. This is way easier than fighting giant spiders. They reach the 5th floor and find exactly what they were looking for. A giant stone golem appears before them, while Shachiku casually identifies the boss as their next big target. It's a high defense tank that usually gives new players a really hard time, but Shachiku only needs one single hit. The golem explodes instantly, which clears the subquest in record time for the team. Honestly, that bugged wooden rod is terrifying and the group can't believe it. As they start looting the stones, it dropped, including a rare adamantine flower for their hoard. We need 180 stones to rebuild the village walls, guys. Kira points out the golem won't respawn until tomorrow, but Shachiku pulls out a pan. He leads them back up the stairs to a hearth area developers placed right before the boss room, where he tells them they're going to cook, and the party wonders if you're supposed to fight on a full stomach. Shachiku gets his frying pan ready for action. He starts vibrating like he's having a violent seizure, while the group watches their leader start glitching out of reality itself. He stops the frantic motion suddenly, and claims he's achieved a state of superposition. Normally you can only cook food items, but Shachiku uses the bug to cook money, which results in stir-fried gold coins garnished with some veggies. The girls have finally reached their limit with this guy's absolute nonsense. They start questioning if this is even legal within the game's world. Shachiku flips the bugged meal into the air to finish the process. The result is a bugged meal called Object 151, which doesn't have a proper graphic. Guys, their brains are melting from looking at the broken code. He explains it's unused data that can trigger errors if it's erased. Then our guy just starts eating it, while Danya screams at him to spit it out. Shachiku ignores them and feels the item's effects hitting his system immediately. He runs back toward the boss room, while the girls follow him yelling in confusion, and find the stone golem has returned. Shachiku explains that eating that bugged meal tricks the system into passing one day. It skips time without advancing the timer so they can farm the boss indefinitely. He plans to repeat this loop 15 times to get every material they need. Aliha admits she doesn't understand a single word coming out of his mouth. Kira realizes he's just talking to himself to keep track of the process. You can tell she thinks this hero might be a total weirdo. 16 minutes later, they finished 18 loops and have a pile of loot. Shachiku tells Danya it's time to use her travel skill to reach the capital. Danya pulls out her magical bells and prepares to cast her teleportation. She rings them and calls out their destination, which sends the entire party flying through the air instantly. They land and Shachiku drops the stones. He tells Danya he needs her to teleport them back to the capital again. This guy's a slave driver when it comes to speedrunning efficiency. The knight and the wolf stay behind to guard their pile of materials. Danya casts the spell once more, and they shoot across the sky again, moving faster than any normal travel method. Shachiku is clearly optimized for maximum speed. They slam into the ground in front of the capital city's main gates. A guard looks over the wall and sees something dark falling from the sky. A dark slime-like substance hits the ground. It's just their mage, Eliha, who didn't handle the high-speed teleport very well. They arrive at the Shield of Ada Guild to find some skilled workers. Danya realizes Shachiku is already walking inside, even though the others are still recovering. They enter the gnome group's headquarters to hire their best carpenters. Guys, the gnome chief Baran Mei is already furious. He screams at Shachiku for thinking he can just walk in and borrow them. He brags that his gnomes are first-rate and tells Shachiku to get lost because he looks like a weakling. Shachiku isn't even listening to the insults. He asks what he needs to do to prove he's a first-rate employer. Baran Mei demands he bring rare dungeon flowers, so Shachiku slams one down before the gnome even finishes talking. The chief is stunned, but then he asks for some rare dwarven dice. Shachiku slams those down too, which starts to make the gnome really nervous. Finally, he asks for a Dragonclaw opal and Shachiku produces it immediately. The gnome starts panicking inside his head because he thinks Shachiku can actually read minds. He's afraid his bluff has been exposed by this terrifyingly prepared human. Shachiku just stares at him and waits. The gnome breaks and says they're hired. Guys, you won't believe how fast Shachiku managed to clear that recruitment subquest. He tells Danya they need to return to the village right this second. They teleport back one last time. The girls land and look around. While Kira is completely speechless at the sight, massive building frames have appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the field. Danya and Kira are screaming because they were only gone for a few minutes. We're seeing peak efficiency here as Shachiku explains his flag-setting glitch. He hands the gnomes the heavy lifting while he grabs a rusty hoe. He starts plowing the ground while moving in a very specific rhythmic pattern. He saves frames because normally you'd have to wait for the animation. The girls watch him and decide he's definitely been poisoned by his own bugs. The knight and wolf return later. They explain they were busy fighting off some goblins on the village outskirts. Kira just stares at them in silence. They look up and realize the entire village has been transformed while they slept. The gnomes are working like machines. Shachiku finishes the fields and waits for the final buildings to be completed. He tells Danya it's almost finished, but she insists it's impossible to finish the rest in 3 minutes. Shachiku asks if you forgot something, and pulls out another bugged meal. He explains he made a few spares earlier. Guys, look at him eat that unused data like a complete madman. Reality warps again as the time skip effect takes hold of the entire area. Shachiku casually confirms the loading is done, while the party looks on in absolute disbelief. The entire village is fully restored and looks better than it ever did before. We've reached the finish line and Shachiku officially stops his timer. Kira can't believe they actually pulled off something this insane so quickly. Even the legendary gnome builders are passed out on the ground from exhaustion. Shachiku is happy with their 28-minute record compared to his original goal. We don't see luck like this often. As Shachiku credits the item drops, Eliha is looking at Shachiku with a very hungry expression. She tells him she can't hold back anymore and starts drooling like a predator. It looks like she wants a piece of our guy for herself tonight. Back at the royal castle, things are getting pretty hectic. Princess Ada's scanning the horizon, and guys, she's looking pretty stressed out. She's screaming in pure shock and demanding a carriage right now. Her guard mentions an afternoon meeting, but she tells him to postpone. So the knight just turns his back and walks straight into the gate anyway. Ada can't believe he really did it. Over in Tadanka village, our guy is busy. Eliha is drooling, thinking you guys would love a hero cooked in low-temperature oil, but then she starts to wonder if he knows she's from his route. Shachiku feels someone staring from behind, so he spins around very quickly. He asks Eliha if she's alright, and she frantically tries to hide it. Shachiku just assumes she's super hungry, which leaves her completely caught off guard. He presents a massive feast of bison roast and berry cake. Everyone else is just staring in silence. Kira asks if he made all this, since we know they don't trust him. Suddenly, some gnomes rush the table and start shoveling food into their mouths. They think it's absolutely delicious, so the cat girl asks if they'll vibrate. Aliha's just happy she's not busted yet. Kyra looks over at her companions and tells them they should eat too. Aliha agrees to join the meal immediately. While they're eating, a carriage pulls up. Shachiku and the cat girl go to check. Princess Ada steps out looking very royal. Our hero is surprised to see Ada Hime. She tells him he's really done it. Kira welcomes her to the sight, but then Ada gets a bit distracted. She stares at Kira's chest for a moment, and guys, she's definitely admiring the view. Aliha can't believe the princess is here. She's watching from the sidelines very closely. Ada touches a wall and realizes that it's all built properly with stone. She says this is way too strange, and stays quiet for a second. Then she bows and thanks our guy for rebuilding the village so fast. She mentions she didn't come alone and tells someone else to come out. A guard leads out a hooded lady. It's a survivor from the original village. The old woman looks around the area, seeing how we have the same houses. She feels like she's in a dream. Shachiku just smiles at her happily, but then the old lady's eyes widen. She starts glaring at the group behind him. Shachiku uses his given skill for judgment and sees dark silhouettes among his friends. The old lady screams a frantic warning, telling him to look right behind him. A dark, slime-like monster appears suddenly. It's huge, and guys, it's very scary. Kira jumps in to block the attack. Shachiku calls out her name in worry. She's struggling against the dark mass, which creates a massive crater in town. Aliha is shocked by the sheer power, especially when Kira draws her sword. She stabs the creature right in its eye, but the slime just keeps on moving. A small core pops out of it, and guys, it rushes right back toward the group at unbelievable speed. The creature realizes its core is damaged. Shachiku watches as Kira stands guard. He's trying to figure out the monster. It's Raspy, one of the Elite Four. Kira recognizes her as the hungering quagmire. The cat girl looks totally terrified. The guards are shaking in their boots. Raspy says she's flattered to be famous. Kira wonders why Shachiku isn't fighting her. She demands to know if Raspy ate the members of the Silver Dragon Fang. Raspy just says she was very hungry and licks her lips like a creep. She claims she can't eat in peace, so she'll just take a souvenir instead. Kira's eyes widen as she realizes something. You can see the pure shock on his face as he turns around. Raspy smiles and starts to move away. She grabs someone and heads for home. Kira's looking totally shocked by the speed. She can't even get her sword up before a dark tendril shoots straight at her. Dark slime wraps around Princess Ada's neck. The old lady watches in absolute horror. Raspy drags the princess into the shadows. She wonders why the knight protected the kitty. Shachiku's just standing there, looking totally blank. Raspy says she's keeping the main dish, and mentions the speedrunning route in his brain. She opens a massive black hole portal. Raspy tells them to come to the Swamp of Starvation if they want Ada. Then she vanishes into the dark portal. Kira and Shachiku scream after her. They're left standing in an empty village. Shachiku's brain is processing the fact that this scenario literally never existed before. The cat girl says they have to go and save the princess before she's killed, but our guy says he's against it. Everyone stops and looks at him weird. Kira asks him to be totally honest. She knows a surprise attack shouldn't make a hero lose his mind like this. The cat girl says we should prepare properly. Kira looks down and feels pretty guilty. She admits that a body double is meant for exactly these dangerous kinds of situations. The cat girl realizes what just actually happened. Shachiku's still looking down at the ground. He's got a very serious look now. He says that while Raspy was unexpected, going to her dwelling is actually okay. It puts them back on a regular route. He needs to get his rod back, and mentions he has some backup strats. He's ready to go save the hostage, and he's going to do it fast. Kira smiles, seeing the hero is back, but we have to cross a mountain range. It normally takes 2 weeks by land, and griffins can't even fly that high. Shachiku tells them not to even worry. He says there's a perfect glitch for getting there in just 15 minutes flat. The girls are looking extremely confused right now. Princess Ada is still thinking about those breasts though. Our story begins with a frantic question. Kira thought she was ready for anything, but honestly guys, she's currently losing her mind, because we're looking at the world's weirdest shortcut. 6 minutes earlier, Shachiku explains his crazy plan. Kira thinks they have plenty of time, but the protagonist knows they're already being hunted. He points out there's no reason to kill a hostage, unless that hostage isn't actually the real Saintess. Ada shows off a special lifelink necklace, explaining that the real Saintess has the matching piece, and it'll shatter the moment her life runs out. It was built as a safety measure for the girl, so we've got to move before the fakes are exposed. Kira is fine with moving fast, but she's got a really bad feeling about this. Shachiku stays quiet for a second, then admits this is the most dangerous route yet. Even so, he isn't going to back down, because they need to reach the swamp of starvation before the villain realizes his hostage is a fraud. That means there's no more time to hesitate. Kira doesn't understand the game logic he uses, but she remembers the horror of being a puppet. She refuses to ever feel that fear again. Our guy smiles and says it's time to go. He's way too excited for this speedrun, guys. He tells them we're heading to the capital. They arrive at a nasty place called the Rat's Den. It's a sewer sitting right under the slums, and the girls are already grossed out by the smell. They pass by a few locals living in the muck. The protagonist stops and says they've arrived, which confuses Kira since they aren't at the swamp. Usually, you'd have to take a massive detour, crossing mountains filled with dangerous high-level monsters. Shachiku taps on a random stone wall and casually announces he's about to wall clip. The girls have no clue what that means. He grabs a wooden box and explains that since the game's collision is broken here, you just have to sit and face the wall. Then he stands up and vanishes into the bricks. Kira starts screaming because her friend just disappeared. Ada realizes he just went through to the other side. She tells the knight they have to follow, so she sits on the box and turns around. She phases through the wall while screaming, leaving Kira all alone in the stinky sewer. The poor knight starts crying from the stress, but she eventually sucks it up and sits down. She closes her eyes and pushes through the stone, and that's when she sees the nightmare world. We're looking at the world beyond the game's polygons, which the protagonist calls the underground world. Kira gets dizzy just looking at the floating houses, and her foot slips off the invisible path. Luckily, Shachiku catches her before she drops. He tells her she's okay, but she's terrified. He explains the invisible floor has gaps everywhere, and falling into one means falling forever until death. He tells them there's a shortcut right ahead, but the girls are too scared to move. Ada's foot slips on the edge of the grid. She tumbles over but manages to stay on. Our guy realizes he can't treat them like NPCs, so he suggests they all hold hands to stay safe. They grip each other tight and keep moving. 6 minutes into the run, they reach the goal. The girls yell that this isn't normal danger. Shachiku ignores them and says they finally arrived. He points at a floating stream of blue energy. Kira is basically a zombie at this point, while Shachiku explains this is the Source River, which flows directly to the other side of the mountains. Ada asks if he's planning to jump in, and he says it's faster than walking on glitches. Before they can complain, he drags them into the stream. Suddenly, we're at a village near the mountains. A shepherd named Mate sees people drowning in the air. They successfully clip back into the real world, and the girls are just happy to see dirt again. Matt runs over to see if they're hurt. She asks if they're okay, but Shachiku panics. Kira asks if the girl is a local resident. Our guy's face goes pale as he starts screaming. He tells them to get away from her immediately. The trio sprints away as fast as they can, leaving the poor shepherd girl totally confused. Ada asks why they're running from a child. Kira wonders if the girl was a secret monster, but Shachiku says she's just a normal, good girl. The problem is that they skipped the entire mountain, so they haven't triggered the right story flags yet. The girls have no idea what a flag is. He explains the game's logic is extremely strict here, and talking to her would mess up the causality. If the timeline breaks, the entire world will crash. The girls just stare at him like he's insane. He casually mentions it's odd to worry about crashes, since they already cheated to beat the final boss. Kira starts chasing him because his methods are suicidal. Meanwhile, bats fly through a dark, underground cave. This is the actual swamp of starvation hideout. We see a girl floating in a dark pool. She opens one eye and looks totally bored. She jumps out and looks completely healed up. This is the villain, Morphomet, and she's annoyed. She complains that the female knight was a total pain. Then she walks over to her captured hostage. The girl tied in the shadows is Ada Hime. Morphomet looks at her and starts getting depressed, because she actually wanted the cat girl as a hostage. She yells at the saintess to just deal with it. The saintess calls her an idiot with a foul mouth. She asks who else would even be in this cave. Morphomet is shocked that a saintess talks like that. She gets a suspicious look on her face, and decides to flip the girl's skirt up to check. She screams at the top of her lungs, because her beautiful female hostage is actually a man. Morphomet starts squishing his face to check for magic, but the guy tells her to stop touching him. He says the villain's power is weak and it hurts. Morphomet realizes he must have royal blood. She grabs him by the throat with a creepy smile. She calls him trash and says the disguise failed. She mocks him for being a brainless body double, and the guy just spits right in her eye. You can see the fluid dripping down her cheek while she freezes in shock. He looks at her with total contempt and tells her he isn't a dumbass like she is. Morphomet loses her cool and bashes his head, sending blood flying across the stone floor. The poor guy slumps down against the cave wall. He's bleeding out and thinks he's finally dying. He regrets not being a pervert while he had the chance. He tells the villain to just kill him already. He wants it to end before the real Adaheim arrives. Morphomet finds his attitude way too impudent. She decides there's no reason to keep a decoy alive. Since the hero won't come for a fake, he's useless. She tells him he's got a pretty face, but she's going to mess it up for good. She raises her hand to deliver the final blow. The guy just closes his eyes and waits. A massive explosion rocks the sewer entrance, and Morphomet spins around to see who's there. She asks what the hell is going on. Her beat-up face is covered in blood as she stares forward in absolute terror. Dust fills the room as 3 figures appear. Shochiku casually waves and says hello to everyone. The villain is stunned that the hero is here. She stammers because they were just in the capital, and there's no way they traveled that fast. It's obviously a trap, guys, but our hero don't care. Shochiku explains the upcoming boss fight. This boss is a slime named Raspy, and she's a high-level elite enemy. Normally she takes 10 minutes to beat, but we don't have that kind of time. Raspy copies your best equipment, and since she has that bugged rod, it's dangerous. That means they need a brand new plan, and guys, his plans are usually pretty crazy. The team keeps pushing forward as fast as they can until Danya's necklace rattles. The twin crystal cracks right off her, which means they've really got to hurry up. The swamp is right in front of them, but a lava ogre is blocking the way. This monster is level 65. It looks like a total beast, so Kira thinks they're in big trouble. But Shochiku isn't even flinching at all. The ogre roars directly at the group. Our guy tells everyone not to fight because he's going to use this monster instead. He points at an old discarded shield. Then he tells them to face backwards, even though there's a huge maze cave ahead. They're going to get launched over the whole thing. The ogre raises its hammer to strike, so the kid waits for the perfect frame. He starts the countdown and gets ready. The hammer slams into that shield like crazy. Now they're flying through the air together. They stop mid-air because of a loading zone, while the game's graphics fail to keep up. Now they're just dropping straight down. We're skipping the entire dungeon today, guys. They slam into the ground with a bang. They landed right in front of the boss. Raspy can't believe how fast they got here, and she complains that it's totally unfair. She's even got a captive held back there. Danya looks ready to pounce on her. She is looking pretty intense right now. The boss asks how they did that, but the kid just throws some coins. He's skipping the boss's opening cutscene entirely. That's because dialogue is just a time loss. Raspy is fuming at him for that. She says her head is really hurting now. Kira realizes those coins actually worked well, and the slime boss finally stops talking. She decides it's time to eat everyone instead. She lashes out with dozens of tentacles, so Kira starts slicing them all down. One of the tentacles turns around suddenly. It's heading straight for the cat girl, since Raspy thinks she found a snack. But Danya's eyes are glowing with rage, and she isn't scared of this thing. She winds up a powerful punch for her, and lands it right in her face. She tells Shochiku to finish this immediately. He says roger that with a smirk. Raspy touches her own face in shock, and decides she's done playing around. She pulls out that crazy bugged wooden stick. Our guy is just staring her down calmly. She jumps high into the air, then comes down swinging like a maniac. She's smashing every rock in her path. This bugged weapon is clearly too strong, but Kira jumps in to help him out. Their weapons clash and sparks fly everywhere. Raspy tells the knight she's just trash. Then the knight charges right back in. The boss tells her to just wait, and starts laughing like a total psycho. Kira realizes she has to retreat for now. The boss swings that stick again, since she's loving how light it feels. It's stronger than any giant's heavy hammer, and this stick is a total game breaker. She screams that speedrunning is the best thing. Suddenly, she gets hit by more coins, because the pro tag thanks her for pulling aggro. She's pissed they interrupted her big moment. He's just standing there grabbing more coins, and he pelts her with them again. The boss is stunned for a second. She can't believe he is still doing this. She dashes behind him to attack fast, but he says that's just boss basics. He knows exactly where she's gonna be. Our guy just rolls under her swing, because he's taking 0 damage from her. A cheat weapon is useless if it misses. She's getting really frustrated with him now. She calls him a very impudent human, and her body starts to glow bright. Dark liquid starts flowing from her boots. It's spreading all over the cavern floor. Shochiku realizes things are getting weird now. She starts singing a really creepy ballad. She's talking about a pitch-black void, while dark shadows start rising up, and they're filled with creepy white grins, since Raspy has multiplied into an army. The girls are totally surrounded by clones. She tells him he can't escape anymore. She's going to devour everything he has, while dozens of clones start laughing loudly. They all attack at the same time. Shachiku realizes this is actually phase 2. He planned to use a glitch here, but his damage control was too perfect. He didn't hurt her enough to skip, so now he's looking for a bug. While Kira screams his name for help, she's busy fighting off the clones solo. They keep coming back after every slash. Their severed limbs just turn to liquid, then they grow back into hands, because now there are even more of them. She thanks him for the help sarcastically. Kira is starting to panic for real. They're being pushed back by the mob. Danya is also struggling to stay alive. Since she knows they can't win like this, it looks like game over today, guys. Kira tells him they have to retreat. She says they'll all die here soon. But the kid has a secret idea, and he looks over at the prisoner because there is still one way left, though he really doesn't want to do it. He calls out to the knight loudly. He tells her to just keep cutting, even though she's confused why he'd ask, but he tells her to just trust. The clones all look over at him. Then Kira uses her ultimate Valkyrie technique. She's slicing through the entire crowd fast. Clones are being ripped apart everywhere now. Raspy says it's still totally pointless work. Shachiku is just watching her very closely. The boss finally senses a huge trap. She thinks he's planning something sneaky, so she tells the army to charge, and they all rush the hero together. Impact rocks the entire cavern floor. Our guy is suddenly grabbed by them, while Danya screams out his name. He's looking right at the boss's eyes. Raspy thinks she finally caught the kid, and she opens her mouth to finish, but then, the whole screen just pauses. She's frozen in midair right now, and every single clone has stopped moving. Kira doesn't know what is going on. Even the cat girl is completely stunned here. Raspy tries to ask what's happening, but she can't move a single muscle. Kira wonders if it's powerful time magic, but our guy says that's totally wrong. He asks if you like speedruns too. Her body starts to flicker out now. Since she can only move a little, she's getting really scared of this sensation. She tries to back away from him. She needs to get out of range, but her feet are suddenly sinking down. She's dropping straight into the floor because she asks why she's sinking away. All the clones are starting to disappear. Shachiku warned them about this exact situation. Now he's going to explain the lag. That bugged rod creates too many calculations. It forces the game system to crash. One copy of it is fine, but she made hundreds of bugged clones, so that creates a huge case of lag. The world's order is falling apart now. Everything is moving frame by frame for them. Danya asks what happens if they move. That would just crash the world, and it also breaks the collision detection. Objects will just pass through the floors. The girls are totally lost by this. The system stops checking for solid ground. You can clip through literally anything now, and Kira finally gets the point here. If you bounce during the lag, you'll fall straight through the ground now. Raspy screams as she drops down fast. She's sinking into the game's underworld. He says the programmers were truly amazing. Since the lag is finally clearing up, Slime Girl begs him to stop her, but her bugged weapon is already gone. Our guy doesn't feel any pity today. He says use glitches at your own risk. She falls into the endless white void. So this boss fight is finally over. The squad just watches her vanish forever, and that is where the timer stops. Our guys finally finished the fight. Now that the boss is down, the game's lag has cleared up. He grabs the scales of starvation. That signifies he's defeated an Elite Four. Guys, that's the drop you get from a boss, but Shachiku notices his teammates are already panicking. Ain's been hit by a nasty wound, and normal recovery magic just isn't enough. Suddenly, a girl on a sheep falls from the sky. It's Matt, and she's arrived just in time. She tells them to follow her, and Kira's face shows she's totally lost and confused. Shachiku realizes we can actually talk to her now, because the boss fight is over, so the game's story flags have finally advanced. Matt's shouting for everyone to follow her, and she points toward a nearby spring. She wants them to soak Ain in the water, because the legends say this spring can cure any illness or injury instantly. They dunk Ain into the glowing water, and she opens her eyes right away. She sees the princess looking over her, and realizes that Shachiku really did beat the boss. Ain't feeling a little bit dizzy, because she remembers the slime falling into the ground, but Kira thinks it's just a memory glitch. She tells Ain that her head's working fine. Shachiku's watching them from the side, and he starts thinking about his speedrun stats. But wait, look at that time, guys. He's 7 minutes faster than the previous record, which means copying the strange rod is faster. He's just discovered a total routing revolution, since you can't be afraid of glitches in speedrunning. He's hyped to report this to the online community. Mott's just staring at him like he's a weirdo. They all head back to the girls' village. Ah! Matt's grandmother, Kobu, greets them at the door. She offers them some traditional Tabari tea, but Kira isn't too sure about the smell. Matt's just happy that everyone's safe and sound. Even the knight who was wounded is healed. This place is called Askell Village, and it's hidden behind a massive mountain range, so nobody here knows the princess's face. That's perfect for staying under the radar, because Mate is just excited to have guests. She clearly wants them to stay for a while. Ain asks if they're safe from monsters here, and the grandma just laughs it off. She explains they have the Tabari tea, which is made from a special herb. That makes it hard for monsters to find you. But she says things weren't always this peaceful. Apparently the village used to have to offer sacrifices. Kira thinks they should take some herbs back, but Shachiku's thinking it's great for glitchless runs. Kobu says she doesn't mind sharing a little. Then Matt remembers she has something to show them. She's leading them to the village's best feature. It's a gorgeous hot spring under the stars. The crew's pretty stunned by the view. Matt explains it's the Pious Spring, and it's finally flowing again after their victory. The girls are a bit confused about the name, but Shachiku knows exactly what's going on. He sees the subquest notification pop up, because cleaning out Lasby restored the water source. In short, we just did a 2-for-1 clear. Shachiku starts explaining all the dialogue skips, but the girls have already stopped listening. The guys are relaxing in the hot spring, and Shachiku's glad the knight is healed up. The soldier says even his broken tooth's back. He's used to getting kicked and punched, but getting hit in the face was new. He stares at Shachiku for a long moment, then tells him he shouldn't be so reckless. Shachiku knows he's just worried about Ada, since the princess would give up if he died. The knight tells him to stop talking, even if it was a pretty stupid choice. He's thankful for the save, but hates lectures. Shachiku's surprised by how honest the guy is. Then the knight starts roasting him for cowering. He's acting like a total power-tripping boss. Our guy's feeling pretty depressed about it, but the soldier isn't done with him yet. He's noticed Shachiku's been staring through the fence. The girls are laughing on the other side, and the knight gets a devious idea. He leans in and whispers to Shachiku. He asks if those glitches of his can let him peek through the wooden wall. Shachiku's disgusted that it even asked that. The knight thinks it's definitely possible then. He calls Shachiku a totally boring, straight-laced man. He's suddenly acting like they're best friends, because he's frustrated with being around women. The girls are also enjoying the steamy water, and Kira's thinking about how crazy their day's been. Everything's been hectic since Shachiku arrived. Then the princess turns toward her friend, and asks if she actually likes Shachiku. Kira's face goes red as a beet. She's trying to stutter out a denial, but her blushing face is giving it away. She admits she doesn't really get it herself. She's charmed by him, but also gets angry whenever he gets too close to other women. It's a different feeling than she's used to. She feels like her best friend's being stolen. Ada's just smiling at her friend's honesty. She teases her for being so cute, and then Kira asks what Ada thinks. The princess gets a very serious look, and Ain's just listening from the water. Ada knows that Shachiku is incredibly strong, and he can do things nobody else can, but she knows once the game is over, he's going back to his original world, and they'll never see him again. Shachiku's already hyped for the next mission. He's focused on hitting that world record, while using every glitch in the book. He's constantly equipping and unequipping his gear. Our guy's literally running on the walls, and Kira's just telling her to relax. Ain's definitely not feeling very relaxed though. Guys, she's definitely lying through her teeth right now. Later that night, Matt's cleaning the bath. She's exhausted but happy to have guests. Suddenly, the drain pipe starts rattling loudly. It sounds like something stuck in there. A huge burst of water splashes out, and a tiny little slime pops up. It's a miniature version of the boss, and somehow, Lasby has returned, and you guys can see the squad is stunned. The cat girl demands some answers, but Shachiku is just as confused. The night lady asks for proof, so the slime calls her an idiot. Shachiku thinks they triggered a true ending. Lasby wonders if this is a bug. The woman in the robe is skeptical. She suggests they just kill it now. Since it's just a trash slime now, we all know they won't show mercy. Lasby screams that they're all being unfair, so the cat girl prepares her magic. The slime begs the village girl, but she hates slimes for eating grass. It tries snitching on the other elites. Our guy already knows all their stats. Then the cat girl fires her magic. She's shocked that it did absolutely nothing. The slime is totally fine. The night lady tries her sword next, but the slime is just too squishy. She's stunned that her blade didn't cut. That's when Lasby starts laughing. It mocks them for being so weak. I'm telling you, this face is terrifying. It uses the hot spring's energy, and transforms into a giant weird head. The entire party goes dead quiet. The slime head doesn't get the silence. It tries to jump but just flops. The cat girl asks why it's head only. Shachiku gets some weird old internet nostalgia. It's harmless now, but they can't kill it. They just stare at the bouncing freak. Sometime later at the demon castle, a magic mirror shows Laspie's defeat, which makes the demon princess go ballistic. She's not exactly dressed for company. Guys, she's actually losing her mind. The man called Brams tells her to chill. Morphomet tells him to talk normal. She reminds him she's his only hope. Bram stays quiet and takes the hit. She wonders about the hero's soul, thinking it's worth more than 1,000,000 soldiers. She asks Brams if he agrees. He remembers the blood from the war. Brams says he's never forgotten his goal. He's killed millions for his lord's sake. The princess stares him down. He promises he'll bring her that head. Our group finally makes it to Askell village, but the locals aren't exactly ready to say goodbye. They think city folks are way too impatient, but Shachiku promises they'll meet again soon. The young shrine maiden is clearly surprised, though she still waves them off as they go. Sometime later, we arrive at Capital Falschla, and the guards on the wall spot them. They see a bright light in the distance. As a teleportation beam brings the group home, our guy stretches like he's been gone forever, but the guards are actually looking pretty stressed. These bodyguards recognize the group right away, shouting that it's a miracle they're safe. They're stunned because the return was so fast. So Ada explains it's all thanks to the hero. The mood shifts into something way more gloomy, and the head guard speaks up with some doubt. He demands a demonstration of the royal power, because monsters have been using disguises lately. Since they got back in just one day, he needs some proof that this is real. Ada doesn't mind the suspicion and asks for a magic stone that hasn't been purified yet. A bright flash of light erupts from her hand, and the little monster in the bottle screams, which is the exact same power as the holy barrier that protects the entire capital city. We've got to remember that Ain is just a double, but he can use the royal power because he's actually an illegitimate child of the king. If the real princess were here, the power would be on a totally different level, guys. The guard looks at the purified black stone, realizing he was being rude to his superior, but then we hear someone shouting for Ada, and a guard named Hugo starts crying hysterically. He's her actual personal guard from Tadanka village, and he begs her to punish his failure. He feels like a total loser for blundering, which is why he's offering up his life. Shachiku watches this weird display while Ada sighs, because she's not into this drama at all. She asks if he thinks she'd be happy if her own knight died a pointless death. Hugo is absolutely moved by her kindness, and he starts trembling with a weird joy. Our guy and Danya are both totally weirded out, so they head inside the castle to rest. Once they're in Ada's room, she collapses, acting like a total slob because she's exhausted. Shachiku tells her to act like a princess, but then Kara walks in looking completely different. Our guy freezes up and his face flushes, because she's not exactly dressed for a fight. She asks him what the matter is since she's not wearing her usual heavy plate armor. He tries to play it cool but fails, because he's never seen this outfit before. He realizes this must be some secret DLC, and he can't stop staring at the dress. He admits he's just never seen her look quite so pretty, which makes her overheat instantly. She gets super flustered and starts stammering, so Shachiku starts worrying about a lawsuit. He retracts the statement to avoid the awkwardness, and they finally get down to some business. It's only been 6 days since the summoning, yet 2 of the Elite Four are gone. Danya wonders if Laspie counts as defeated since she's technically still alive in a tiny bottle. Shachiku isn't sure because she's a weird bug, but they did get the unique item drop. That means they're still on the right route, and they can still hit the true ending. Laspie brags about how interesting the fights were, which makes the girls think she's a psychopath. The Elite Four are basically the highest honor. For demons who want to end the world, they have to assume the others are planning a countermeasure for when our group arrives. Laspie says she's smarter than that old hag, so she used her trump card much earlier. Kira worries about a surprise attack right now, because Shachiku used up all his gold coins. Originally, his strategy relied on a high damage rod, but since that's gone, he needs something new. He wants to get the obsidian greatsword early, but that requires doing a very glitchy warp. The girls yell at him to stop crashing, the actual fabric of reality with his speedruns. Shachiku realizes that the people in this world don't know anything about how the game works. He starts to feel a bit disturbed because it's way too much like the real game. If his meta-knowledge is this accurate, then he can definitely find a way back home. But he wonders if it's actually sad that all his friends are just part of a game world that he is trying to escape. Kira asks him what his next move is, and he takes a second to think it over. He decides he'll just use the Holy Sword, even if it makes the run much harder. Danya snaps at him for calling it a basic stopgap measure for his crazy speedrun. The real problem is that the last two elites are actually the smartest of the bunch. They have to go even faster than before, so the enemies don't have time to prepare. The girls aren't exactly on board with rushing, and Kira starts a long rant about preparation. She wants him to prioritize safety over speed, while Lasby is still wondering about the princess. Ada interrupts the argument to tell our guy that he's coming with her all day tomorrow. They're going to a meeting with the sages, who act as the main advisory body. These guys think the hero is a fraud, and they're already calling his report a lie. One of the sages wants to meet him, while an old man shouts about treason instead. They think they're protecting the kingdom's people, and they won't let any tragedy happen again. Melina stares out at the capital city, looking like she's ready for a real fight. If the hero disturbs the order, then these sages are going to shut him down. Long ago, a goddess sent a dragon to watch over the earth, but the heads betrayed her, so a holy woman prayed for peace, until she could finally summon you, a hero to kill that dragon. The hero and woman had 6 kids, who became the ancestors of this kingdom. Now, we're inside Falshilla Castle, where things are looking pretty tense. These old-timers look absolutely miserable, and our guy Shichiku is the reason. He's standing there in handcuffs, wondering how he ended up in chains. To understand that, let's look at yesterday. Shichiku asks Princess Ada about the sages. She says we should have expected this. Since he defeated 2 Elite Four members, the people in power want answers, and they're probably not going to be nice. Ada calls the sages a bunch of cowards. They're the heads of the royal houses, who've run things since the beginning. They strictly forbid fighting the Demon King, because of a massive tragedy a century ago. If you aren't the official hero, they'll treat your victories like a crime. Shichiku realizes why adventurers were so frustrated. Danya says it kept people from dying, but man, these rules are a buzzkill. Our guy wants to tell the theorists. Meanwhile, Ada is just chilling with booze. Shichiku thinks being the hero fixes everything. He doesn't get why he's a threat. Guys, he's just way too abnormal. His speedruns don't make any logical sense. He's basically a walking glitch to them. Ada stares him down for a second, but then her expression actually softens. She tells him he's a good guy. It's rare for her to be nice, so we should probably enjoy the moment. Danya is just happy they're finally friends. She gives them a big, wholesome smile. Ada immediately gets flustered and starts yelling. Back in the present, the interrogation starts. The hall is way bigger than in-game. Danya warns him to keep secrets. Shichiku is sweating bullets right now. A bunch of knights blow their trumpets. The choir starts singing about the dragon, and the 6 heads that founded Shirelli. First up is Melina Re Serifari. She's the Pope of the Goddess Church. Then there's Balzas, the Supreme Military Commander. This glasses guy is Cronid Ro Orvis. He's the president of the Alchemy Society. Oniyu is the president of the Merchants. And she's not exactly dressed for company. Balzas tells her to focus on work. Riga Re Tesset is the court superintendent. He's the one yelling about courtroom violence. This feels like a job interview, guys. Poor Lasby is stuck house-sitting instead. Melina shuts down the idle chatter. She finally addresses the restless, otherworld hero. Ada is watching from the sidelines. She remembers Melina used to whip her. Shichiku recognizes these names from the backstory. These people raised the princess and Kira. He hasn't met the other 3 yet. The sages look down from their balconies. They have some direct questions for him. They ask if he actually defeated Arachne. Shichiku admits it, but credits his team. He pulls out the diadem of domination. Guys, the sages are losing their minds. Balzas asks for the specific combat details. He knows exactly how strong Kira is. An Elite Four shouldn't die that easily. It's only been a week since summoning. To them, he's just a clueless child who couldn't possibly win a real fight. Oniyu points out he's only level 4. Riga asks if it's a special skill. The goddess only gives power to heroes. He thinks Shichiku has a hidden cheat, but the stat screen is just gibberish. Cronid asks what the weird language says. Shichiku admits that even he can't read it. The crowd starts whispering in the dark. Things are going south for our guy. Oniyu asks if he's a demon spy. Shichiku starts panicking and swearing his innocence. Ada realizes he's too honest for bluffs. This criticism is way harsher than expected. Calling him a spy is totally overboard. Riga screams that they'll find the truth. He starts flipping through the law books. He slams his gavel to start questioning. Shichiku is suddenly bound by magical chains, while a divine flame appears before him. He's terrified of what comes next. Ada demands to know what's going on. Riga says he'll jail him if needed. This flame burns black if you lie. Ada tells them to stop the disrespect. Riga brings up the summoning day incident. He reminds them that Shachiku ran away. Our guy looks like he's been caught. To the sages, it looked incredibly suspicious. He ran away naked and totally unarmed. Then he claimed he won impossible battles. Guys, he has zero video proof here. Danya tries to defend him with logic. Riga thinks the real hero was swapped. He claims a demon is wearing his skin. Kronid tells everyone to just calm down. He agrees the hero is a mystery, but a spy wouldn't be this weird. Shachiku tells him to just shut up. Melina talks about the roots of evil. In the war season that happens often, they can only summon heroes occasionally, so the world is on the brink. Only an otherworlder can kill the boss. But guys, they just don't trust him. They want to believe he's the one. Melina tells him to reveal everything now. Shachiku remembers the warning about his secret, and that's when a new voice speaks, as a very tall man enters the room. Everyone stops what they're doing immediately. Danya looks like she's seen a ghost, and the king of this kingdom walks in himself. The entire chamber turns to look at him. Sir Tesset goes bloodless. Shachiku is just confused to be there. Tesset jumps in surprise. The king asks why the hero's bound, and demands they release him immediately. Then he calls the judge ignoble for this. Shachiku's cuffs just shatter into pieces. The king apologizes from the balcony for the rude welcome. He claims Tesset is usually more righteous, so our guy finally meets the big boss. He asks for forgiveness, which is a massive shock. This is Alciote Lee Falshella, the 107th ruler. He's a legendary adventurer and Ada's father, which means he's actually Shachiku's half-brother now. The maid is surprised he left his room. But guys, he's here for a story. He wants to hear it straight from the hero. He specifically wants the summoning story. Shachiku knows exactly where this is going. He's afraid his weird glitches are going mainstream. The king heard rumors about the summoning, specifically how the hero skipped the sword, and then ran through a literal wall. Everyone else thinks the king is being ridiculous. The sages are just judging him in silence. He's heard of magicians doing this, and now he wants a live demo. It's apparently His Majesty's worst habit. Shachiku realizes he can't say no. He tells the maid to hold on. Then he starts slamming into the wall. The sages think he's trying to break it, but he's just positioning himself for a skew. He aims for a specific angle, and he slips right through the geometry. The king looks like a kid at Christmas. The sages are literally screaming in terror. We can see they're questioning their own reality. Shachiku just walks back through the door. He explains there was no surface to skew. The king is absolutely loving these glitches. He's never seen anything like it. It's a power from the myths, and he assumes this is just one ability. He lists all of Shachiku's achievements, knowing people fear power they don't understand. But everything Shachiku's done has helped them. He's removed the kingdom's biggest threats. Now they can finally go on the offensive. He doubts the Demon King would use spies, so he's putting his full faith in him. The sages aren't exactly sharing the sentiment. The head sage still doesn't trust him. She says his powers are beyond reason, so she's keeping a very close eye. Shachiku can feel the heat from her glare. However, she can't deny that he saved them, so she agreeably helps him out. The king tells him to rely on them. He thinks the sages are being insensitive. Shachiku's happy he can keep speedrunning without trouble. The king thanks him one more time. Then he asks if Danya is being useful. He mentions she looks stable, but she tends to act out of line. He asks Shachiku to watch her closely. The king sits alone in his room. He contemplates the power of the hero, wondering if it's a blessing or not. Suddenly, he gasps in intense pain. A black curse is spreading over his hand. He's clearly struggling to hold it back. It looks like it's a recurring issue. He manages to force the darkness down. He lets out a heavy sigh of relief. Back in Ada's room, she's very apologetic. She's bowing her head in total shame. Luckily, the trial didn't end in blood. But guys, they almost got outed as traitors. Shachiku asks why he's keeping a secret. He thinks the sages should know the truth. Ada explains that it's a political nightmare. The Demon King might be dead, but his wellspring of evil is still open. The real Ada screams from her jar. Our girl Danya tells her to shut up. They need to fix the source first. If people find out Ada is fake, the entire royal family will crumble. The dupes have way too much power. If the king shows weakness, he's done. And they can't prove who's who anyway. Shachiku's getting a headache from the politics. He was never good at this corporate stuff, but there's a much bigger problem here. There's a traitor hidden among the sages. Shachiku's caught completely off guard by this. Secret information is constantly being leaked, and they've caught underlings, but never the mastermind. The sages' hostility might be part of it. Ada apologizes for keeping him in the dark. Shachiku thinks back to the original game. These sages were barely even mentioned there. They were just background lore in the theories. But everything in this world is different. The characters are all deviating from the script. Shachiku gets a very familiar look. He wants to identify the spy quickly. They have to be linked to the enemy. Shachiku doesn't know anything about their ranks, so he's going to use an artifact. Specifically, the legendary Flame of Tesset. Ada thinks that's a great idea, but it's a sacred heirloom they can't touch. Tesset wouldn't use it without legal grounds, and he's a stickler for the rules. Shachiku wonders why he used it earlier. Then he suggests just stealing the flame. The girls look at him with pure disgust. Shachiku explains these treasures are all game items. You can tell he's been waiting for this. They can see a speedrun coming. He plans to borrow it from under Tesset's nose. He's getting that crazy speedrunner glow again. Ada yells at him for being a criminal. He claims it's for a noble cause, but Danya isn't buying his hero act. Tesset's mansion is a literal fortress of traps. Shachiku pulls out a very special mirror. This time, it isn't even a glitch. A bright light fills the entire room. Ada's jaw drops as the light fades. She can't believe what she's seen. Our guy has undergone a full transformation, and he's now turned into the female protagonist. We open with everyone looking completely stunned at our guy's sudden transformation. Kira demands to know what he's playing at, while Danya literally begs him to change back. You guys have to remember that usually only magic creatures can shapeshift like this. The runner just stares at them with his usual deadpan expression, specifically at the parts of his body that definitely weren't there before. It's clear that Kira is feeling a little self-conscious about the competition. He explains that there's no difference in the story or abilities, so players can change their gender whenever they want. Guys, she's realizing this goes way beyond just a simple wardrobe change. Danya wonders if his body is just a temporary vessel for his soul. Kira isn't interested in the philosophy, she wants to know the point. If his stats don't change, how does this help their mission? She starts blushing because she's worried he's planning a honey trap, and honestly, she looks absolutely disgusted by the idea. Our guy quickly shuts that down, claiming he'd never do something so, AGH? Explaining speedrun mechanics to casuals is always such a massive headache. So, he decides it's better to just show them instead. We jump to Sir Tesset's mansion in the middle of the night. The crew is already inside and meeting with the man himself. Tesset tells them his resolution won't change no matter how often they visit. But then he notices the stranger standing in the middle. You can see the pure shock on his face when he realizes that he's actually standing in front of the legendary Otherworld hero. Since he can't exactly ignore a hero, he leads them away. As they walk down the hall, Shachiku keeps his eyes peeled. Suddenly, he feels a sharp pain in his gut. He doubles over in agony, which immediately alerts the girls. He cries out that his stomach is suddenly killing him, blaming it on something he must have eaten back in the dungeon. Danya plays along and demands to know where the nearest toilet is. The butler is told to escort them and keep a close eye. Tesset thinks he's safe because Kira is staying behind with him, but he has no idea he's being played by a professional. We flash back 3 hours to see the actual plan. Kira explains that she visits Tesset often enough to avoid suspicion. However, even Shachiku can't predict Tesset's movement since he's a new NPC. So, Kira will keep the old man occupied in the drawing room. While he's distracted, Shachiku will sneak off and steal the flame. They can't just use the flame on its owner immediately, so our guy is actually impressed by how reliable Kira is. She goes quiet for a second before admitting something. To be honest, she feels pretty bad about being a thief, but they can't be overt about this if they want to win. To outwit the game, you've got to be unpredictable. She looks at him and asks a simple question. Just how long is this heist going to take? Back in the present, the runner tells her he only needs 5 minutes. He wants to avoid a crash, so he's sticking to the regulations. Danya is losing her mind because he mentioned the game crashing. She uses her kitten lullaby spell to knock out the butler. With the guard down, they reach the first door puzzle. This is the World Dragon statue, which acts as the key. You have to hit the heads in a specific sequence. While the door loads, he explains the rest of the run. This next part is basically a stealth dungeon full of golems. If they get caught once, it's an immediate game over. The door finally creaks open, and we're officially on the clock. They step into the hall and see a golem immediately. The golems move at regular intervals, so blind spots are everything. He tells Danya to wait for the gap before moving. He notices she's wearing DLC Kunoichi gear that boosts her stealth. Since he doesn't have any special gear, he has to improvise. Danya watches in horror as Shachiku starts stripping his clothes off. He explains that being naked actually reduces his noise floor. It gives him a +6 stealth bonus at the cost of defense. It's time for some precise movement text to bypass the guards. They dash past a golem with perfect timing. These colored floor tiles will drop spikes if you step on them. He suggests a cartwheel to clear the gap safely. Danya is watching the golems and realizes something is wrong. The golem turns around right as they're in the open, and it looks like they're about to cross paths directly. She panics and tries to call out to him, because there's nowhere left for them to hide in this hallway. But the golem just spins right back around and leaves. It literally walks away as if they weren't even there. Danya is confused because it feels like they're being ignored. She asks why the golems keep avoiding them so perfectly. This is the exact reason he swapped to a female character. Even though stats don't change, the gender value is very important. It turns out the protagonist's gender locks the NPC behavior patterns. So, he's using a female model to force convenient RNG. That doesn't mean the entire ride is going to be easy. He uses a slingshot distraction to pull a golem away. Then he spots a wooden crate, which is a stealth staple. The treasure room is finally in their sights up ahead. He mentions that their patterns have been predictable until now, but they'll definitely be spotted once they reach the end. Right on cue, two massive golems turn and find them. Danya freezes, but our guy has one more trick. He tells her to hide under the crate with him. It's a very tight squeeze for the two of them. She's blushing like crazy being this close to his bare chest. She whispers, asking what the point is if they've been seen. The golems stare at the crate for a split second, and then they just walk away as if nothing happened. Apparently, hiding within 0.2 seconds cancels their discovery state. Danya can't believe these high-tech golems are such pieces of junk. They reach the treasure room at the 3-minute 55 mark, but as they enter, a bright light blinds them both. A voice booms, calling them thieves who must be purged. Getting through the stealth section was only half the battle. This is the merciless Iron Maiden, the final guardian. He tells Danya to stay back where it's safe. He retreats to force the boss into using ranged attacks. While watching his stamina, he dodges every single spike volley. Once the boss pauses, he fires 3 shots into its weak spot. The explosion rocks the room and stuns the maiden. With the boss knocked down, he goes in for the kill. He finishes it off with a powerful jump slash to the core. The flame of Tessit finally appears from the wreckage. With that acquired, the timer stops at 4 minutes 43. Shichiku starts yapping about his post-run impressions like a true nerd. Danya is just exhausted that the fight is already over. The little slime in the bottle is feeling pretty motion sick too. She realizes Kira is still waiting and suggests they head back. They leave the boss room littered with broken golem parts. Guys, I have a feeling someone's going to notice this mess later. We're back at the Tessit mansion, where Danya's great uncle is throwing a total fit about the hero. He wonders who Shichiku thinks he is, but Danya says they've got nothing to fear. She wants to get back to business. The old guy isn't happy about it. He's tired of Danya being so persistent. Guys, he says his decision is final. He won't hold Milena accountable for anything. Despite the whip marks on the girl's back, Danya claims she's got proof that the old man is lying. She won't let the past violence be forgotten, because now that she's finally come of age, she's ready to use the law for some payback. The judge thinks she's overestimating their relic. It's called the Flame of Tessit, but it only works if the person knows they're lying. So guys, it's not exactly a perfect truth serum. Danya suggests they compare every single testimony. The old man says he doesn't doubt her. All the physical evidence from that day is long since gone. Plus, the victim doesn't want to press charges. Holding a trial now would break their laws. Danya just laughs in his face. She calls him an inflexible and timid man, which really catches the guy off guard. She asks why he was so quick to restrain Shichiku then. The judge starts stuttering because he's totally busted. Right then, Shichiku and his companion finally return. They're just staring at the old guy's embarrassing meltdown. He tries to explain, but you see it's pathetic. You can really feel the tension in the room. We cut to later that night at the mansion. Danya is hanging out in Ada's room. She finds Shichiku passed out on the sofa. The guy is clearly exhausted from all the recent game chaos. He wakes up and looks a bit confused. Shichiku welcomes everyone back like nothing happened. They all gather around for a serious chat. He pulls out that Flame of Tessit relic. Guys, he really just stole a national treasure. Danya's friend mentions the legend about the bloodline. Shichiku isn't worried since he's used relics before. Since he's the otherworld hero, we know rules don't apply. He decides to give the thing a test run. Magic shackles suddenly lock onto the poor girl's wrists. She can't believe he's actually trying this. Shichiku thinks it's important to verify the gear. He asks if she's a spy for the demons. She says no, because that wouldn't benefit her. The flame stays white, so she's telling the truth. Now he wants to see it catch a lie. He asks if she tried peeping recently. And guys, she's totally losing her mind. The other girls give her the coldest stare. The flame turns black and she starts screaming. Shichiku's happy to see the item works perfectly. Danya decides it's time to get back to business. She talks about her chat with the great uncle. He showed her a mysterious card he received. It says to remember what the apocalypse is. The old man thought it was just a prank, but then Shichiku defeated the entire Elite Four. You gotta admit, Shichiku's aura is pretty suspicious lately. We still haven't found any real evidence of treason. That's why they need to use the stolen flame. We only have 3 days to return it. Danya asks how he'll interrogate all the elders. He'd have to be incredibly fast and very quiet. If he gets caught, he'll be labeled a traitor. Shichiku's already got a plan for that. He just needs to hide his identity while working. He reaches into his bag for a disguise. And guys, he pulls out a fake mustache. Danya hates this ridiculous fake mustache plan. Shichiku explains that the game system is weird. The cat girl doesn't really get his logic. She's worried that he doesn't know what's coming. He admits this quest doesn't exist in the game. He's starting to wonder what's even real anymore. We see Lasby is still sulking in her bottle. Shichiku's trying to figure out his next move, but he says he's finally got a real idea. We head over to the Dragontail Mountains next, where a girl is currently running from a boar. A mysterious blade suddenly catches the light as it descends. It slices the level 38 beast in half. This random guy just saved her from being lunch. He's more upset about his coat getting dirty. He asks the girl if she lives nearby. He gives her a smile and checks for injuries. They head back to her home and ask her village. Her grandmother is crying tears of joy. The man admits he was actually the one lost. He's just glad Mate-chan was there to help. She's confused because monsters shouldn't be here, but the grandmother says the season of war is starting, which is a century-long period where monsters rampage. She warns the girl not to wander off again. Mate-chan is clearly terrified by the old woman's warning. She wants the jittery hero to hurry up already. The mysterious guy asks about this jittery hero you mentioned. The granny didn't want to say it to Shichiku, but seeing a hero usually means war is close. She's heard the last war was a living hell. The stranger agrees that it's a scary thought. Mate-chan tells them that we'll be totally fine, because Shichiku will apparently cram evil in a bottle. The guy is genuinely confused by that specific claim. Demons don't leave bodies behind, as we already know, but Mate-chan insists that Lasby didn't disappear at all. She says the demon turned into a slime. The stranger looks pretty rattled by that news. Later, he arrives at a place called the Fountain. He knows that according to the world's rules, that demon should have died after losing her life force. Shichiku was somehow able to twist death itself. It's a terrifying thought for a high-level guy like him. He wants to find Shichiku's true power. The Flame of Tesset hates all liars. It's basically a magical lie detector test. At the mansion of Duchess Oniyu, the president is enjoying a quiet soak. Her servant Shiba checks the baths, and Oniyu asks for some more incense. Deal with the hero really tired her out. Then, someone lobs a bomb inside, and thick smoke fills the entire room. Oniyu realizes they have a sneaky intruder. Shichiku is officially starting the secret operation. Oniyu suddenly finds her hands in chains, because a mysterious mask just appeared. She recognizes the legendary Flame of Tesset. The mask demands a simple answer, and she realizes it's the dragon himself. The judge tells her time is short. He asks if she's a demon spy. She says no, and promises revenge, but the flame stays white and pure. The judge vanishes as quickly as he arrived. Shiba rushes in to check on her. Oniyu realizes she's not dressed for guests. That's gotta be embarrassing for her. Guys, our hero is speedrunning this interrogation. This whole crazy plan started 30 minutes ago. Shichiku decided to use Lasby as a mask, but Lasby is still just a floating head. The princess asks if this is wise, and the slime starts having a flashback. Because he's trying to mimic the judge's hair, you can tell he's not happy here. He reminds them he's a former elite. Even if he's currently powerless to fight, he still thinks they're all just scrubs. Shichiku tells him to shut up and work. He reminds Lasby who's actually in charge. Do this, or go back to the underworld. That threat is enough to trigger his trauma. Lasby immediately agrees to follow every order. Shichiku wonders why they need the dragon's head, but he realizes the risk is too high. If they don't use a disguise, the council will know it's the hero, and Shichiku wants to protect his identity. He's also trying to get his revenge. Princess Ada realizes this plan is messy, because Shichiku says they don't have glitches. They'll call it a surprise investigation, but what if they don't find a spy? Shichiku gives her a very confident wink. She realizes he's going all out tonight. Our guy is ready to break the game. Most council members are home right now, and we've got to respect his memory. He maps out a route for the run. He's actually excited to start his speedrun. The group heads out under the moon. To stay hidden, they'll use the alleys. Wait, this guy is really taking his clothes off? The girls are screaming in hushed whispers, while he explains that skin boosts stealth. Their first target, Oniyu, was confirmed innocent. Shichiku waited outside like a decent guy. Next on the list is Sage Cronid. Shichiku knows a shortcut through the tunnels, but they slam right into a wall. Kira is seeing stars after that impact. Sachiko forgot about this specific invisible wall. You've gotta love a convenient wooden box. He starts spinning like a crazy person. Kira tries to keep up with him. Inside the institute, Cronid is working hard. He's busy calculating complex star alignments. He realizes the schedule is totally off. Suddenly, a smoke bomb rolls past him. The room fills with a white cloud. Cronid has no idea what's going on. His hands are locked in magical shackles. The judge's mask appears in the smoke. Sachiko uses a microphone for the voice, and then he asks if Cronid's a spy. The sage is honest, and he's innocent. The judge bids him a fast farewell. Cronid just wants a strong cup of coffee. 2 down, and the timer is ticking. Next is Kira's grandfather, the Grand Marshal. Pyro warns them that he's still dangerous. The La Shifuka mansion is basically a fortress, and Kira mentions a secret family passage. Sachiko says he has a much faster way. He doesn't need glitches for this wall. This specific spot has 0 collision detection. Princess Ada looks like her brain broke. Guys, we all know the feeling. Sachiko steps halfway through the solid stone. Kira's family pride is officially in shambles. They arrive in the Grand Marshal's office. Balzes is a very intimidating old man. He senses something is wrong immediately. Sachiko lobs the smoke bomb at him. The room fills with the usual cloud. Balzes doesn't even blink at the smoke. He stares down Sachiko and the mask. The hero prepares to start the interrogation. Suddenly, the old man draws his sword. He's faster than anyone could have expected. Ada barely manages to block the strike. Balzes recognizes his granddaughter's fighting style. She tells him to receive his judgment, so the old man stops and stares. He allows them to put on shackles. We're seeing his speedrun disguise fail. Balzes is insulted by the spy accusation. The flame stays white, confirming his loyalty. Sachiko plans to finish the council tonight. He apologizes for the rush and leaves. Balzes watches the hero run away naked. He's very confused about the lack of clothes. 3 targets down, and they're all innocent. Only Archbishop Milena is left on the list. Kira thinks Milena is an unlikely spy. Princess Ada is deep in her thoughts. You've got to wonder what she's thinking. This is the perfect time for a confession. They reach the massive Volferia Cathedral. Milena lives in the very top penthouse. Sachiko decides to take a massive shortcut. The girls have no idea what's coming. These walls are normally impossible to climb, but Sachiko found a tiny glitchy leaf. He starts wall jumping up the side. It looks absolutely insane to the girls. He reaches the top in record time. Sachiko says this jump is for experts. He tells them to just wait below. Ada tries to copy his wall jump, but she immediately slips off the wall. We've all failed a jump like that. It sucks when you can't clip through reality. Archbishop Milena is praying in her room. She's asking the goddess for a blessing. Sachiko lobs the bomb behind her back. Smoke fills the room as she turns. She's shackled before she can even react. The judge's mask looms in the haze. The dragon prepares to ask the question. He asks if she's working for demons, and she recognizes the hero's wild methods. She correctly guesses who's behind the mask. Sachiko realizes he's been totally found out, as he realizes Milena's way too smart. She thinks the hero is incredibly brazen. Sachiko begs her to just answer him. She says no, she's not a spy. Everyone watches the flame very closely. It stays white, clearing her name too. The final council member has been vetted. Look at that speedrun time, guys. Later, they head to the castle dungeon. They find the real Tesset behind bars. He's screaming about his arrest and humiliation. He was caught in the bath earlier. Sachiko points out he could have ordered servants, but then he notices Tesset's missing flame. The poor guy thinks he's been framed. I actually feel bad for the guy. The council had him arrested for misconduct. 1AU is happy to see him suffering. Sachiko is confused by her petty grudge. She whispers that you always hit back. Balzes and Milena arrive for an explanation. They want to know what's really happening. Sachiko tells the dragon not to worry. Ada promises his safety is guaranteed now. We're starting to suspect everyone now. Princess Ada decides to take the blame. She claims she ordered the hero's actions. She asks the council for their forgiveness. Oniyu is furious he invaded her bath. Balzes is ready to hunt the turncoat. They all agree to work with Ada. So, who's the actual demon spy then? Everyone outside the jail was found innocent, so that only leaves the guy inside. Ada tells Sachiko to test the dragon, and he starts the final interrogation beat. Tesset is shocked they have his flame. Sachiko asks the dragon the big question. Tesset looks down and stays very quiet. He realizes he's a danger to everyone, and believe me guys, no one expected this. He says he's just trying to protect them. Cronid thinks this is total nonsense. The dragon screams that he is right. He's afraid the hero will become a tyrant. Everyone watches him in total shock. Tesset starts to explain his reasoning, but then something goes horribly wrong. We're looking at a real mystery here. Milena and Ada watch him with horror. Kira notices his eyes are going blank. Suddenly, the dragon slumps to the floor because he's collapsed right in front of them. Kira screams for them to call doctors. They realize he wasn't trying to commit suicide. Someone must have silenced him for good. A moment later, he finally wakes up. He looks at them with confused eyes. We're left with more questions than answers. He's totally forgotten everything about himself. The group is left stunned by this. Back at the castle throne room, Themis is giving the king a report. Duke Tesset has officially confessed to everything, and then his memories were wiped clean. They even found a blood-stained card. That seems to be the smoking gun. Since we can't decode the high-level magic, they're just keeping the Duke under arrest. He's basically a shell of a man now. Themis thinks it was an automatic spell that triggered the moment things went south. To avoid a total civil war over spies, they're just telling everyone he's retiring for health. But the king still feels like something's wrong. He doesn't get why the guy would flip. Themis guesses it's to keep his secrets safe, which totally fits how the Demon Lord operates. Still guys, the Duke was a total stickler for the law and couldn't lie for anything. If he was in his right mind, we know he'd never become a traitor. The king tells her to keep digging, and thanks Shachiku for another win. But then Themis brings up the legal stuff. Our guy committed 13 different crimes yesterday, so the king just officially pardons him. He's just glad the hero's on their side, even if his methods are totally wild. Cut to a high-end tea party at the Lechifica mansion. Kira is trying to act all elegant, while her grandfather looks pretty intense. Mamea is just enjoying the free food, but Shachiku is sweating through his shirt. He's terrified of breaking some fancy etiquette rule, because this guy's the Duke of the household. Usually, our guy doesn't care about manners at all. Shachiku thanks the Duke for his help, and you can tell he's being super polite. The Duke is happy the mission worked, but he's still shook by the betrayal, since he knew Tesset for a long time. Themis is now taking the traitor's position, which means only 3 legendary bloodlines are left. The Age of Gods is basically history now. The Duke jokes about dying happy soon, and Kira tells him to stop being morbid. We see that every family is struggling to find a worthy heir to the name. But then the Duke's mood totally shifts. He wants to know why Shachiku was naked. Talk about an awkward pivot for tea time. Kira and Mamea try to calm him down, while Shachiku claims it was for stealth. The Duke isn't buying that for a second. He's furious that his unmarried granddaughter saw a guy who is clearly not bothered with modesty. Mamea asks if he'd still be mad if Shachiku were actually Kira's fiancé. Kira starts daydreaming about a whole wedding. She's imagining a super domestic happy life. Then she gets to the bare-skinned part, and we see her brain totally short-circuit. The guys just stare at her turning red. The Duke pulls a sword on our guy. He drags Shachiku away to talk man-to-man. So much for a fast speedrun today. Kira explains her grandfather used to be terrifying. He's way too overprotective of her these days. Mamea can see the old man really cares, even if his methods are a bit aggressive. Shachiku follows the Duke down a hallway. The silence is so heavy you could cut it. He feels like the game's plot is derailing. The graphics in this mansion are honestly amazing. Our guy stops in his tracks though, because he sees a very specific portrait. He recognizes the woman as Princess Sayla. The Duke confirms that Sayla Lee Falshella. She was a saint from a century ago. She was also the one who summoned the very first hero to this world. The official guidebook says her power was weak. She was also the master of Brahms, who was one of the Elite Four. She's remembered as the most pitiable princess. Because her hero died in his first fight, everyone in the kingdom blamed her for it. Even her knights left her for the enemy. She eventually tried to fight the Demon Lord. With only a few people at her side, he died, and 1 million people followed her. The Duke reveals that Sayla was family. Everyone else hates her, but they remember. Shachiku finally understands her connection to them. The first hero's blood has been getting thinner, and monsters have been winning for a decade. That is, until Lady Ada was finally born. The Duke apologizes for scaring our guy earlier. He just wanted to get him alone. He wants to tell a story about Kira. He asks if he's heard her play violin. Shachiku has only heard the game soundtrack version. Kira has loved the instrument since she was tiny, but she could never get the sound right. She had to play poorly on purpose, guys. The Duke points to a portrait of his son. Victus was the best swordsman around here. He led a group to fight monsters, and he ended up dying in battle. All they got back was his old helmet. You guys know how tragic that is. He wanted Kira to be a safe noblewoman, but one day she asked to learn swordsmanship. She had a look that he couldn't ignore. He gave her training that would break adults. He wanted her to quit and go play, Instead, she killed a wyvern at age 12. Now, you see, she's stronger than he is. He tried to protect her but failed miserably. He feels like a total fool for it, but he's finally being honest with himself. We hear him ask Shachiku for one thing. Just bring Kira home safe after everything's done. He wants to hear that terrible music again. He still won't call him a son-in-law though. Shachiku just agrees to the request. 5 hours earlier at the capital gates, adventurers are doing some boring checkpoint duty. Jen complains that this isn't real questing. Maloney reminds him the army is short-staffed. He wants to do something more heroic than just checking paperwork for some guys. Loran shows up to tell them it's noon. She's their support member with a special skill. Jian thinks her ability is actually pretty cool, since guys like them need to find monsters. She helps them keep the capital totally safe. Loran is just happy to be useful now. She can't fight, but she can spot danger. Maloney tells her not to push herself, since she was a victim of an arachne. That blessing makes her the perfect early warning. But suddenly Loran starts to totally freak out. She's staring at a wagon pulling up. Maloney asks her what's going on now. Loran is terrified of what's in that carriage. Jen doesn't see anything wrong with the paperwork. Loran can smell the stench of blood everywhere. She is trembling at the evil aura she feels. The guy in the carriage looks super refined. Jen asks if he's actually a demon undercover. Loran is literally choking on the evil smell. Jian calls for the wagon to stop immediately. He points his finger at the refined gentleman. He's doing some high-level chunibyo drama here. We see him dramatic posing in front of everyone. The man in the carriage just looks bored. Jian tells him to quit hiding his form, but then he identifies him as a human. Everyone just stands there in total silence. Jen thinks his skill just cast a shadow. The guy explains he's carrying a magic stone. It's a huge stone from a lava boar. It's fused with the horn, which is rare. Jian asks if he was the one who killed it. He says he bought it from a hero. Lauren realizes the aura was from the stone. She's relieved that there's no actual danger here. Jen lets the carriage go into the city. The driver says to keep up the work. As the wagon pulls away into the street, the refined man thinks about the human heroes. He tells Jen to grow up, but guys, Jen isn't hearing any of it. He realizes these heroes actually have some pretty annoying abilities. We can see he figures this dramatic guy is just a decoy hiding the real power. We open on a guy looking confused out in the woods. Way! He's calling for Ada, wondering where he's. But guys, it's just a weird dream. Danya jolts awake in bed looking pretty rattled. She's trying to shake off the vision she had. She takes a second to breathe, then spots her special locked diary. It's been 8 days since he was summoned. Shachiku's winning, but she feels a conspiracy and wonders what'll happen to the kingdom. Is it just shadows or something worse? She tells herself their mission hasn't changed, so they've got to wipe out the Elite Four. They head back to the Adventurers Guild. Ta-da! Look at his shiny rank medal. The staff are celebrating his promotion to S rank. Guys, you can't imagine his speed record. He's casually checking the high score boards. The knight asks if Danya's feeling okay. She says she stayed up writing, and our guy totally loses his mind. You guys know that's actually the save file. In this world, the diary autosaves progress. Danya thinks she's just taking notes, but that's where a literal save screen appears. It even lets him load his progress, which means you can restart on death. But Shachiku's getting paranoid about the risks. He wonders what happens during game over. Since he's stuck here, death's permanent, which means a game over is fatal. He can't risk dying just for testing. The receptionist snaps him out of it. She's hyped to see his new skills. Heroes usually get blessings from their swords, but Shachiku remembers he used gold coins. He sees a skill that's totally glitched, so he just picks the meta ones. Danya gets all pumped to help him. She starts a chant to the royal dragon. A giant skill tree appears above them. The staff's shocked she can access this. She says she's just one smart kitty. Guys, the foreshadowing here is getting heavy. Even the slime girl Laspi is confused. She wonders how a cat knows prayers. Shachiku tells her to just pick 2. He picks a double for more DPS, but he'll have to watch the cooldowns. Danya grants him the new sword blessings. There's a loud ping from the magic, and her eyes go wide with shock. A skill tree shatters into million pieces. Everyone's confused why the blessings just broke. Our guy's sweating because this isn't normal. The knight looks on with serious eyes. She says you've caught the goddess off guard. That means he won't get new skills. Shachiku just stares at her like she's nuts. Guys, you won't believe how many he has. Humans usually have a limit for blessings. She thinks he's already as strong as gods. He's had unknown power since the start. She realizes his nature is something special, and realizes he's got the power of gods. The staff are losing it over this. She tells him to look into it later. Understanding the blessing will make him even stronger. She suggests he talks to Scholar Cronid. Shachiku thinks non-game characters know the most. The receptionist dying to see his power. Later, our guy finds Danya at work. She's still busy writing in her book. She asks him what's on his mind, and he admits it's a strange request. He asks if he can write too. She says it's fine if he doesn't peek. He's doing this to trigger manual saves. The game data storage is actually pretty complex. He's not just peeking at her notes, he's actually making a manual save. The receptionist recognizes a new gentleman visitor. Shachiku looks up to see who's here. A tall man in glasses approaches them, and we see him greet the hero. Kira stares down the mysterious man. He looks way too calm. Shachiku's face drops instantly because the receptionist asks if they're friends. Even the pet slime's losing it. It screams the name Brahms aloud. Kira's already drawing her blade. She demands to know who he is. Shachiku realizes he's looking at one of the Demon Elite Four. The guy's name is Brahms. Kira lunges forward with a strike, but the blade barely misses him. He steps back like it's nothing. She realizes he read her reach. Shachiku shouts for her to stop. She's confused why he's hesitating, because the demon isn't even attacking. Brahms is supposedly the rational one. Shachiku thinks there's room for talk. Kira's disgusted by the word sympathy. Brahms wonders how the hero knows. No human should recognize his face. He assumes it's some special skill. The receptionist starts shaking in fear. Guys, she knows the legend. He agrees that introductions are useless. It's a real pickle for him. Kira asks why he's even there. He points out it's a guild. He wants to file a request. He wants Morphomet, daughter of the Demon Lord, dead. Everyone's jaw hits the floor. He's impressed by our guy's stats. 10 days and already a legend. Plus, you see how he bottled Laspy. Brahms wonders why the slime's alive. Kira tells Shachiku to stay quiet. The demon's eyes narrow at them. He's sure Laspy's defying death. He starts smiling, and it's creepy. He predicts the hero's winning streak. Mew wonders if the king's death is being hidden by the demons. Shachiku asks what his plan is. Brahms doesn't want to fight him, but he needs the princess dead. This isn't how the game goes. Usually we have to kill everyone. Our guy is thinking fast. Cooperation might be the only way to get what he really wants. Brahms asks what his wish is. He's genuinely surprised by the answer. Kira's shocked by the whole deal. She sees right through his defection. To her, he's just a coward. He thinks the general's fate's tragic. She spits the word coward again. Suddenly, a boom rocks the city. They all rush outside to see, and the guild's a total wreck. Kira and Shachiku regroup in rubble. She says she can't trust him. She won't hand over the slime. Brahms sighs at the stubborn knight. Then he remembers something very important. There's another request he's forgotten. He mentions the Serpent Queen, Medusa. Kira's eyes widen at the name. Her gaze turns people to stone. She's a demon as strong as him. And now, she's finally waking up. She's headed right for Askir village. Mew panics because that's her home. Brahms claims he wants to help. Kira calls it a bare-faced lie. He asks if she knows why. Long ago, her father's team fought. The commander died that day. His name was Victus Lee Lashifika. That's Kira's father, and she's reeling. Mew's terrified for her family, while Brahms tells him to hurry. She realizes this guy is evil. He's forcing them to choose. Save the capital or save companions. Mew's fist clenches in pure rage. Kyra looks away, conflicted and torn. Shachiku calls out to her. He asks if he should speedrun. Everyone's confused by the gamer talk. He'll kill Medusa at the village, while Kira handles the demon general. Mew worries about him going alone. Kira says she's not weak either. Shachiku looks back at her confidently. She asks if he'd leave her. He knows she's the strongest NPC. They dash off to start the run. They teleport to Askir village instantly. Brahms asks Kyra about her revenge. She tells him to watch himself. She's going to deal with him. Meanwhile, at the Great Swamp Cave, the local guards are being crushed. Medusa rises from her long sleep. She slithers out into the light. Her magic eyes are finally back. She's furious at the puny humans. Shachiku interrupts her evil monologue. Because he's got a schedule here, she promises to stone every human. In less than a minute, she's nothing more than a pile of dead meat on the ground now. Shachiku calls her a total joke. People are losing it in the capital. The press just wants a big headline, but you can see the knight isn't moving. Red energy flares up, but you can tell nobody's backing down here. Kira is standing her ground against the invader, and this creep. Brahms doesn't look bothered. He just smugly looks down on her like he's already won this fight. He offers to let her go home, and then tries to hit on her. Kira gives him a look like he's the grossest thing she's ever seen. Kira tells him he's absolutely disgusting, since he dared to deceive Lord Tesset. Our guy is watching the confrontation, because he knows Kira is currently outmatched. Kira wants to handle this alone to keep the hero's power a secret. Brahms taunts her about her dead father, telling her she'll regret backing down now, but her duty always comes first. Brahms narrows his eyes as the mood suddenly turns lethal. Brahms starts to draw his sword, noting they aren't so alike after all. You guys know this is getting messy. Kira decides it's time to stop talking, so she activates her first combat skill. She uses Etude to instantly close the gap. Brahms barely blocks the incoming strike, but his glasses are already cracked. She dashes straight past him, leaving him barely able to block her strike. He complains that her power is underhanded, so she kicks it up another notch, and Allegro makes her move even faster. Guys, it's like she's playing a different game. He admits her speed's actually superhuman. He slices his own hand open right on the ground, so he spills his own blood for magic. This Bloodthorn skill creates a forest of spikes, but Kira just jumps higher. Brahms looks up in sheer shock as he realizes where she went. She comes screaming down from the sky, and Brahms realizes he's in serious trouble. She locks her glowing eyes on him before he can even blink. She lands a clean hit on his chest. Guys, blood splatters across her face as she stares him down without mercy. Brahms staggers back while clutching his wound. Guys, we can tell something's wrong here. Kira notices that he saw the attack coming, so we know he could have dodged it. Our guy runs over to check on her, and he's already done with his mission. Kira's stunned by what he's telling her. Guys, he literally beat Medusa in 5 minutes, and he even brought back the loot. Brahms is stunned by this ridiculous speedrun. He grits his teeth in pure frustration knowing you can't fight stats like that. He realizes he's reached his limit today, so he says sorry to his pet. This black hole item's his way out, so he snaps the catalyst, opening a huge portal right above our party, and he vanishes before they can react. But the moment the danger passes, her legs just give out under her. Kira collapses because her mana's exhausted, and you can see she's covered in blood. The kid looks down at her concerned, but she starts scolding him immediately. She's mad he didn't show enough emotion, but then she lets out a quiet chuckle as her irritation vanishes. Then she softens up and thanks him, and you can tell he's relieved to see her back to normal. We can see the capital's safe for now. Now Brahms is at the CFP village ruins. He's bleeding out because that cut's deep, and the vampire's getting very thirsty. He hears a carriage being attacked nearby. These thugs have captured a noblewoman, and they're beating up her elderly servant. They're planning to sell her for gambling money. We always think things can't get worse. Brahms stares at the weapon they're holding. It's just a sickle used for wheat. But the thugs joke about being farmers, and they decide to rob the dying man. But Brahms is actually happy to see them, because he's glad they're just human scum. The girl watches in horror as he feeds. He drinks them dry to heal up, so he sinks his fangs deep into the flesh to absorb every bit of energy. And now, he's back to full power. He tells the girl to be careful, and tells her to hire better guards. He's mostly just annoyed about his new coat, but you know he's coming back for him. We're back at the Tessit mansion, where a new boss is finally taking charge. Meet Themis, the new head of the family. She checks in with a nervous servant, asking how the former family head's doing. He's basically a total vegetable these days, forgetting faces and needing help with everything. Themis looks pretty bothered by the news. That's when the servant mentions a detail, because there's a strange mark on his chest. She looks closer at the supposed birthmark, but it looks more like dried blood, so she suspects it's not natural at all. Themis orders the servant to stay silent. Now, she starts digging for the truth. You can tell she's looking for something. She tears apart her predecessor's entire study, eventually finding a safe hidden under his bed. Inside is a wrapped stack of letters. They're from Kira, written years ago, and I'm telling you guys, they're suspicious. Concealment magic is hiding all the contents. The only clue is that bloodstain mark. Themis remembers blood as a mana conduit. She's stumped and considers asking for help, but this spy case is top secret business. The paperwork is already piling up fast. Things are moving way too quickly lately. Ever since the hero arrived, she's swamped. Dealing with his pardon is a nightmare. She really needs a drink. I feel that. We cut to the capital's nobility district, where Kira is feeling a bit sluggish. Shachiku watches her, knowing she's totally drained. She used her SP fighting Brahms, which is why she needs to rest. Shachiku's special cooking can't fix this one. He needs her fighting fit for Brahms. They finally arrive at their destination. It's the Royal Institute of Magic Research. Shachiku wants to find some new skills. They're meeting a scholar named Kronid here. Shachiku thinks this guy sounds like DLC. He asks what Kronid is actually like. Maloney is surprised he doesn't already know. Apparently he's the smartest and luckiest guy. Shachiku is confused about the luck part. Kronid was a total child prodigy. He got his doctorate at age 8. His specialty is researching magic tools. These tools let commoners use magic now, Before him, nobles kept magic a secret, but the current king changed the rules. They needed commoners to fight the war, so Cronid took on the massive responsibility. His noble family line was dying out, so he became family head at 10. Shichiku thinks that sounds like a coup. Kira warns he might be super dangerous. He's responsible for the kingdom's newest tech. He might just be a lucky rogue. You should be careful with him, guys. Maloney says his soul seems clean though, so she says we should trust him. They knock and ask for an audience. Someone finally opens up the front door. An elf girl greets them very casually. She's excited to see a real hero. This student is an elf named Madoka. Shichiku thinks she's basically a fantasy gyaru. Kira is shocked to see her here. Elves are usually rare in the capital. Most of them live in the forests. Madoka says she's just a student here. She reveals she was born without mana. She felt like a total failure, honestly, but then she found magic tools instead. Now she can use magic like anyone. Shichiku thinks that's a pretty cool origin. She offers to make him some gear. They finally enter the main laboratory area. Madoka calls out for her teacher, Cronid. They find him face down on the floor. He's just super sleep deprived from his work. Madoka heads back to check a reactor. Cronid is suddenly acting very polite now. He's happy to meet a real hero. He calls himself a fan of Earth. He's fascinated by steam and lightning power. Shichiku clarifies that he means electricity. Cronid bases his tools on Earth items. He shows off his Otherworld research Bible. Maloney is worried this book's getting banned. Earth items have appeared for centuries here. Shichiku sees a shop selling instant ramen. You'd think time flows faster on Earth. Maloney asks him to look at something. She wants him to decipher garbled text. Cronid is thrilled to help the hero. Shichiku isn't sure it can be solved. He thinks about speedrunning language settings now. The game automatically translates everything for him. Cronid takes a very close look, pointing out a specific pattern in symbols. It is a very simple substitution cipher, and he realizes it's just a puzzle. Shichiku is surprised it's that easy for him. There are only 5 unique symbols here. Identifying them will reveal the true message. Shichiku explains what an encoding error is. Cronid asks him to write his language. Shichiku writes out all the Japanese characters. The team watches him work in silence. He thinks they might actually solve this. Cronid doesn't even know what computers are. Maloney asks how many combinations there are. That's over 100 million different combinations. That is true for most people here, but Shichiku knows the language already, so he can narrow it down fast. Shichiku is shocked. A fantasy character knows this. It seems like a very simple problem. Cronid says nothing is impossible for him. People are just bamboozled by the complexity. He wants to prove anyone can do anything. Kira is watching him very intently now. She thinks he's a bit too arrogant. She feels he's imposing his own sense. Shichiku is lost in his own thoughts. He realizes speedrunning is the same way. You find a glitch where things seemed impossible. He starts yapping about frame-perfect tricks now. Cronid has total faith in the hero. Shichiku tells him to leave it all. They share a very firm, manly handshake. The group says their goodbyes and leaves. Kira wonders if they'll make it in time. Shichiku is already busy solving the cipher. He starts guessing different Japanese food names. Cronid watches them leave from his window. His expression suddenly goes completely cold now. He walks over to a secret bookshelf. He pushes a hidden button on one. A secret passage opens up behind it. He heads down a long spiral staircase. He enters a room full of machinery. This is a magic computer powered by mana. He calls it the Deus Ex Machina. Its processing power is beyond any electronics. He thinks about the hero's strange power, wondering if it's related to his skill. The screen says, the decryption is finished. Cronid looks at the result and freezes, because the truth is way too dangerous. Lightning flashes over an old dark castle. This is the spooky old Camilla Castle. A mysterious, long-haired man is reading there. He looks exactly like a relative of Kira. He's reading that same record of another world. He thinks Earth's board games are amusing. It's late at night in the capital. Kira is groaning in her sleep in pain. She clutches her chest like she's suffocating. And guys, she has that same mark. This man is definitely pressing his attack. A bat screeches inside the dark room. Kira is clutching her chest because she's struggling to breathe. She realizes she's got to find a doctor, but then she spots a visitor in her mirror. It's Brahms, and guys, he isn't invited. She draws her sword and screams his name, but her body suddenly paralyzed with pain. Brahms tells her not to do anything foolish. He's cast a forbidden spell that whips her. The kid's horrified he'd use such magic. Brahms acts like a gentleman and asks questions. He wants the secret to the hero's strength. Kira's disgusted he thinks she'd ever talk. He claims he's not a fan of violence, and so he brings up her loyalty to Ada. Kira's sweating because she's clearly being manipulated. He praises the princess as a noble saint. She demands to know his plan for Ada. He claims he won't do a thing, then reminds her how the kingdom failed Ada. He points out the judicial system didn't help. She's stunned because he's technically telling truths. Her mind's racing as she processes his logic. Guys, we can see she's losing the fight. Her head's getting cloudy from his mental trap. He knows she's starting to agree with him. He says princesses are just pawns to kings. Something snaps deep inside her dark eyes. She starts spilling the beans about the hero. This world mirrors a game called Another Verse, and our guy Shachiku is the best speedrunner. Brahms is actually listening to this weird lore. She says he knows every enemy's past. Brahms realizes the hero is a giant threat. He asks if the hero's really her friend. He's curious if Shachiku knows her dark past. He thanks her for being so helpful, then decides to give her a gift. He lets his own blood drip onto her. His blood's full of mana and toxic miasma. He wants her to use her new blade, so she can strike down the hero himself. Next morning, the party's flying on Griffons. They're already far from the royal capital. Shachiku's bummed he can't learn more skills, so he's decided they're gonna go level grinding. He's found a boss that grants 20 levels. Danya's skeptical, but she's gotta trust his methods. He's got a special item from a Medusa. It's a lifeblood vial and some serpent venom. The vial fully restores every single stat, but the venom kills anything it touches instantly. He's gonna cheese the boss with this poison. He looks back to check on Kira, but she hasn't said a word all morning. He's worried he's done something to upset her. She's not even wearing her usual bikini armor. He tries to focus on the mission instead. They arrive at a giant ruined city square. Most of the buildings are just burnt shells. This used to be the capital of Mimea. He tells everyone they're landing right here. Danya's looking around and feeling the creepy vibes. This place used to be a merchant hub. It was actually richer than the royal capital, but everything was destroyed in just one night. Brahms was the one who burned it down. Kira's staring at the ruins with dead eyes. Danya calls out to the hero for answers. She wonders if Brahms is really that dangerous. He's glad she asked about the game balance. Brahms was way too strong before the nerf. Danya's confused by his gamer slang terminology. Shachiku explains that Brahms is a master swordsman. His attacks used to be impossible to dodge. Danya asks if he's stronger than Demon Kings. The hero says the Demon King's easier. Developers nerfed Brahms because nobody could win. This finally made the final boss look scarier. He starts yapping about his personal balance ideas. She asks if he can actually win now. He admits his odds are about 1/3. Brahms has ruined his speedruns countless times. He's the second biggest run killer in the game, but they're dealing with the post-nerf version. He's calculated the game version by the glitches. At level 4, he's got a 90% chance, so the leveling is just for extra safety. He claims he could win in 15 seconds if he hadn't lost his strange rod item. Kira's been listening to his nonsense this whole time. He mentions that players actually love this villain. Brahms has a giant fan base for being handsome, and our guy's a fan of him too. But he's still a mandatory boss for endings. He wonders if they could have been allies instead. Kira finally draws her sword behind his back. She asks if this is all a game. He turns around, but he's way too slow. She slashes him across the face with fury. Blood sprays everywhere and Danya is screaming in horror. She's attacking him like a literal feral animal. He's pinned to the ground and bleeding out. He gasps out her name and asks why. She's got a dark shadow over her face. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light goes off. He uses a cat's eye flash to escape. Danya's panicking and screaming for an explanation. Kira says she's doing this for Ada's sake. Our guy's looking rough with blood on him. He recognizes the lines she's saying from lore. This is her descent into darkness event. He yells at Danya to open her diary. She's confused why her diary matters right now. He wants to load a pass save, but Kira slashes the diary before he can. She tells them not to make a move. Shachiku's trying to bring up the system menu. A giant error code pops up on screen. The save data's been destroyed by the attack. Danya's terrified and has no idea what's happening. Kira throws away her helmet and glares. She is clearly not bothered with modesty. She's sick of him treating life like games. Dark veins are spreading across her chest armor. Danya's worried about the weird bruise on her. Shachiku realizes it isn't just a plain bruise. Kira's fully possessed by the miasma in her. She tells him this is his final scene. Dark energies exploding out of her like crazy. the ground shaking as the power level rises. He identifies her as the Valkyrie of misguided conviction. She's level 75 and she's turned completely hostile. Since the save's gone, they're locked in. Losing here means the end of their lives. If they win, they progress the true story. But guys, winning means Kira's gonna die permanently. Danya's eyes are wide with soul-crushing terror. The knight's now a full-blown demon warrior queen.